What's up, story lovers? Welcome to another Harry. In today's video, we have a fantastic tale for you. What if Wednesday solved the Horcrux mystery in 1 week and dragged Harry along? If this is your first time here, consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon so you never miss a story. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you for your continued support. Alright, let's jump right into it. Chapter 1. The Girl in Black. The great hall buzzed with its usual dinner chaos when the doors slammed open with a bang that somehow cut through all the noise. Honestly, Harry was so used to dramatic entrances by now that he barely looked up from his shepherd's pie. Another year, another bizarre disruption at Hogwarts. Mate, who's that? Ron nudged him hard enough to nearly send Harry face first into his dinner. Harry turned to look. A girl stood in the doorway, pale as moonlight with two tight black braids framing a face that seemed permanently set to unimpressed. Her black dress looked like something from another century, with a crisp white collar that stood out starkly against the sea of Hogwarts robes. No idea, Harry muttered, but something about her made the hair on his neck stand up. She wasn't just looking around the hall, she was scanning it, methodically, like she was cataloging threats. Dumbledore rose from the staff table with that twinkle in his eye that always meant trouble for Harry. Ah, our new transfer student has arrived. Students, please welcome Wednesday Addams, who joins us for her 6th year of magical education. The hall remained dead silent. Transfer students didn't happen at Hogwarts. Ever. McGonagall approached with the sorting hat, but Wednesday held up one pale hand. No need. I'm not staying long enough to bother with your house divisions. McGonagall's nostrils flared dangerously. Miss Addams, I assure you, just put me in the one obsessed with death. It'll save us all time. Wednesday's voice carried through the silent hall, flat and disinterested. That's not how, McGonagall began. Slytherin it is, Snape cut in smoothly from the staff table. I recognize an Addams when I see one. Wednesday nodded once, then glided, toward the Slytherin table. The students shifted nervously, creating gaps. No one wanted to sit next to her. She sat alone, seemingly perfectly content with the arrangement. An Addams? Hermione whispered. I've read about them. They're an ancient magical family from America, but they practice different magic. Not exactly dark, but definitely macabre. Great, Harry sighed. Just what we need. Another dark wizard enthusiast. Little did he know how wrong, and right, he was. Wednesday found Hogwarts disappointingly cheerful, despite its promising Gothic architecture. Even the dungeons had a quaint, educational quality rather than the proper dank misery of home. Her dormitory roommates had taken one look at her luggage, particularly the hand that reached out from her trunk to hand her things, and promptly relocated to sleep elsewhere. Perfect. She unpacked methodically, arranging her collection of preserved specimens along the window ledge. The small glass jar containing Uncle Fester's toenail clippings looked particularly striking in the green-tinged light filtering through the lake water. A soft knock interrupted her unpacking. Enter at your own risk, she called flatly. Professor Snape swept in, his black robes billowing impressively. Wednesday gave him a tiny nod of approval. At least someone here understood proper dramatic effect. Miss Addams. Your unexpected transfer has created quite a stir. Chaos is always welcome in my family, she replied. Indeed. Snape's lips thinned. Your family's reputation precedes you. However, Hogwarts has certain rules, which I'll follow when they make sense and ignore when they don't. Wednesday finished for him. My father sends his regards, by the way. He said something about that brilliant Snape boy and his innovative approach to poisons in the 70s. A flash of something, surprise, perhaps nostalgia, crossed Snape's face before vanishing behind his usual mask. Gomez has always been effusive, Snape muttered. Nevertheless, you are here for a purpose, I assume. The Addams family doesn't typically send their children to traditional magical schools. Wednesday's dark eyes studied him. Let's just say I'm conducting research. There's something here that piqued my interest. Something, fractured. Snape went very still. Be careful what you search for at Hogwarts, Miss Adams. Not everything hidden here is meant to be found. On the contrary, Professor, Wednesday replied, picking up her pet spider and letting it crawl across her fingers. In my experience, the things most desperately hidden are precisely the things most worth finding. After Snape left, Wednesday pulled out a small, ancient-looking book bound in what appeared to be human skin. The family grimoire contained knowledge that would make most of the professors here faint. Or possibly call the authorities. Now then, she whispered to her spider. Let's find out what's wrong with the boy with the lightning scar. Harry's first encounter with Wednesday came the next morning in potions. Slughorn had paired them together, seemingly delighted at the prospect of his Slug Club star working with the fascinating Miss Adams. I hear your family has quite the talent with unusual brews, Slughorn had said with a wink that made Wednesday stare at him as if he'd grown a second head. Now they stood side by side at a cauldron, Harry nervously flipping through the textbook while Wednesday measured ingredients without once glancing at the instructions. You're doing it wrong, she said suddenly. Harry bristled. I haven't even started yet. Exactly. You're overthinking. Wednesday took the knife from his hands. Potions are like relationships. Sometimes you need to crush something to extract its true essence. She demonstrated by smashing the saprophyros bean with the flat of the blade. Perfect juice extraction. That's not in the book, Harry said, surprised. Books are just dead trees with opinions. She passed him the juice. Add it while I stir. 3 times clockwise, twice counterclockwise. Again, not what the book said, but Harry decided to trust her. The potion turned the exact shade of lilac described as the ideal outcome. Merlin's beard. Slughorn exclaimed, peering into their cauldron. Perfect draught of living death. I haven't seen such precision since, well, never mind that now. 20 points to Gryffindor and Slytherin. As they cleaned up, Wednesday suddenly leaned close to Harry. He froze as she inhaled deeply near his scar. What are you doing? You smell like death, she said, and Harry couldn't tell if that was an insult or a compliment coming from her. But not your own. Interesting. Before Harry could respond, she reached out a pale finger and touched his scar. A shock of pain lanced through his head, but it was gone as quickly as it came. Wednesday's eyes widened fractionally, the most emotion he'd seen on her face. Fascinating, she murmured. You're carrying a piece of someone else. Harry jerked back. What are you talking about? Wednesday merely gave him an appraising look. Meet me in the library tonight. Restricted section. I know you have a way in. Then she was gone, leaving Harry with a perfectly brewed potion and an uneasy feeling in his stomach. She's mental. Ron declared that evening in the common room. Absolutely barking. You smell like death. Who says that? An Adams, apparently, Hermione replied, surrounded by open books. I've been researching them all day. The Adams family practices a unique branch of magic that embraces death, pain, and the macabre. They're not dark wizards in the Voldemort sense, but they definitely don't follow conventional wizarding ethics. So you think I should stay away from her? Harry asked, fidgeting with his invisibility cloak. Hermione bit her lip. Actually, I think you should meet her. What? Ron spluttered. She noticed something about Harry's scar, something connected to death. Given what Dumbledore's been hinting about Voldemort's immortality. Hermione trailed off. You think she might know something about how he survived? Harry leaned forward. It's possible. The Addams family is known for their expertise in unusual magic, especially soul magic. Soul magic? Harry repeated. It's why they have such a complicated reputation. They don't practice the dark arts to harm others, but they definitely walked the line of what most wizards consider acceptable. Harry thought about his frustrating sessions with Dumbledore, the glimpses into Voldemort's past without clear explanation, the sense that the headmaster was holding back crucial information. "I'm going," Harry decided, standing up. "But I'll be careful." Ron shook his head. "Your funeral, mate." Harry wasn't sure if that was just a figure of speech anymore. The restricted section was darker than usual that night, the lanterns dimmed to bare flickers. Harry moved cautiously under his invisibility cloak, wand ready. He nearly jumped out of his skin when a voice came from directly behind him. "You can take that off. We're alone." Harry spun around. Wednesday stood there, somehow having approached without making a sound. He pulled off the cloak reluctantly. "How did you know I was here?" "Death's cloak casts a particular shadow." She said it like it was obvious. "Though yours is just a family heirloom, not the original." Harry didn't know what to make of that. "Look, what did you mean earlier about my scar?" Wednesday gestured to a table where several ancient books lay open. "Your scar contains a soul fragment. Not yours." Harry's blood ran cold. "That's not possible." "Denial doesn't suit you," Wednesday said, pulling out a chair. "Sit." Strangely, Harry obeyed. There was something commanding about her despite her small stature and monotone voice. "In my family's grimoire, there are accounts of soul-splitting. Dark, desperate magic called Horcruxes." She pushed a book toward him with a page displaying a horrible image of a wizard cutting into his own chest with a dagger. "The ultimate cheat against death, not that death can truly be cheated." "And you think Voldemort made one of these?" Wednesday stared at him with those fathomless dark eyes. "No. He made several. And you're carrying one in your forehead." Harry felt sick. The pieces clicked together, his connection to Voldemort, the visions, Dumbledore's evasiveness. "How can you possibly know this?" he demanded. "I can sense it. My family has always had an affinity for death magic. The moment I saw you, I felt the fracture." Wednesday's finger traced a line in the ancient text. "Your Voldemort tore his soul repeatedly. It's why he looks like that, barely human anymore." "Dumbledore must know," Harry whispered, horrified. "Your esteemed headmaster knows many things he doesn't share," Wednesday agreed. "But I doubt he knows how many fragments exist or where they all are." "I do." Harry stared at her. "That's impossible. You just got here." "I came here because of them," Wednesday said simply. "My grandmother had a vision. Said the balance between life and death was being disturbed by an abomination. The Addams family takes offense to improper tampering with death's domain." Harry tried to process this. "So you came to, what? Fix the balance?" "I came to destroy the Horcruxes." Wednesday closed the book. "All of them. Including the one in you, preferably without killing you, though I make no promises." Harry jumped up. "I'm going to Dumbledore." "Sit down, Harry Potter." Something in her voice made him freeze. "Your Dumbledore has had years to solve this problem. He's still collecting memories and theories while a madman walks the earth, functionally immortal. I can solve this in a week." "A week?" Harry laughed incredulously. "I've already located the first one. It's here in the castle." Wednesday stood. "You can help me or stay out of my way, but I'm destroying them all starting tonight." Harry knew he should go to Dumbledore. This strange girl couldn't possibly know more than the greatest wizard alive. And yet, Dumbledore had been keeping him in the dark, doling out information in frustrating fragments. "Where's the Horcrux?" he found himself asking. For the first time, Wednesday's lips curved in the ghost of a smile. "Follow me." The room of requirement transformed around them into a vast cathedral of hidden things. Mountains of discarded objects stretched in every direction, broken furniture, banned books, confiscated toys, and thousands of other items abandoned by generations of Hogwarts students. How did you know about this place? Harry asked, amazed. The castle told me, Wednesday replied, walking purposefully forward. Old buildings speak to my family. This one has quite a lot to say. Harry hurried after her. What are we looking for? Ravenclaw's lost diadem. Voldemort hid it here during a job interview. She stopped and pointed. There. Perched on a tarnished bust was an old tiara, unassuming except for a faint, sickly aura that seemed to pulse around it. I can feel it from here, Harry murmured, his scar beginning to prickle. Wednesday nodded. It knows you. Soul recognizes soul. She approached it cautiously, drawing not a wand but a strange black dagger from within her dress. Is that a ceremonial kriss? Harry asked, surprising himself with knowledge he didn't know he had. Family heirloom, Wednesday confirmed. Cousin Itt used it to perform trepanation on my father once. Very effective for releasing trapped spirits. Before Harry could process the casual horror of that statement, Wednesday snatched up the diadem. Immediately, a shadow seemed to pour from it, forming a face Harry recognized from Tom Riddle's diary. Who dares? The shadow began. Wednesday slashed the dagger across the diadem without hesitation. A terrible scream filled the room as black ichor poured from the cut in the metal. The shadow writhed, reaching for Wednesday's throat, but she simply watched it with something close to fascination. Pathetic, she said as the shadow dissipated. Can't even die properly. Harry gaped at her. That's it. It's destroyed. 1 down, 5 to go. Wednesday tucked the dagger away, seemingly unaffected by the dying screams that still echoed in Harry's ears. 5. You know what all the others are. A cup, a locket, a ring, a snake, and you. She ticked them off on her fingers. The cup is in Gringotts, the locket was in a cave but has been moved, the ring is in his mother's family home, and the snake stays with him. Harry's head spun. How could you possibly know all this? I performed a ritual before coming here. Used a piece of his old school robe that my grandmother acquired decades ago. Wednesday started walking back toward the door. Soul magic leaves traces. If you know how to look, they're as clear as footprints in fresh snow. Wait, Dumbledore's been hunting these for years. If it's so easy, it's not easy. It's dangerous, bloody work that would horrify your professors. Wednesday turned to face him fully. I'm willing to do things they aren't. The question is, are you? Harry thought about all the people who had died because of Voldemort. About Sirius falling through the veil. About his parents. Yes, he said firmly. What's the plan? We leave Hogwarts tonight. Starting with the ring, it's closest. Wednesday's dark eyes bored into his. Pack lightly. Bring your cloak. Meet me at the One-Eyed Witch statue in 1 hour. We can't just leave school. Your education or the world's salvation. Choose quickly, Potter. Put like that, there wasn't really a choice. Harry had just finished packing a small bag when his dormitory door opened. He tensed, expecting Ron, but instead found himself facing Dumbledore. Going somewhere, Harry? The headmaster's voice was mild, but his eyes weren't twinkling. Professor, Miss Adams works quickly, I see. Dumbledore sighed, sitting down on Ron's empty bed. I had hoped for more time. Harry blinked. You know what she's doing. I suspected why an Adams might suddenly develop an interest in Hogwarts. Dumbledore looked genuinely tired. Their family has always had an uncanny sense for death magic. I should have anticipated this when Minerva told me about the transfer request. Then you know about the Horcruxes, Harry said, not a question. Dumbledore nodded gravely. I have been researching them for years, carefully putting together the pieces. Wednesday found them all in a day. Harry couldn't keep the accusation from his voice. Miss Adams has advantages I do not, family magic passed down through generations of those who walk comfortably with death. Dumbledore's eyes rested on Harry's scar. She told you about your connection to Voldemort. That I'm a Horcrux. Harry's voice was flat. Were you ever going to tell me? A long silence stretched between them. I wanted to spare you that knowledge until necessary, Dumbledore finally said. And to be certain there was no other way. Is there another way? I had hoped to find one, given time. Dumbledore looked at Harry's packed bag. But it seems Miss Adams has her own ideas and timeline. She says she can remove it without killing me. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. That would be remarkable. The Adams family does practice magic most wizards wouldn't attempt. So you're not stopping us? Harry asked, surprised. I am adapting. Dumbledore stood slowly. I still believe my approach, careful research, methodical hunting, has merit. But perhaps fresh eyes see paths I've missed. He reached into his robes and withdrew a small vial of golden liquid. Felix Felicis. I suggest you take it before attempting whatever ritual Miss Adams proposes for your scar. Harry accepted the vial, stunned. You're letting us go. I am acknowledging that I don't have all the answers, Harry. Dumbledore moved to the door. But I insist on one condition, you will take this. He handed Harry a small mirror. Sirius's two-way mirror, repaired. Keep me informed of your progress. If things go wrong, it will serve as a portkey back to Hogwarts. Simply say, Sanctuary. Harry swallowed hard, tucking the mirror into his bag. Thank you, Professor. Dumbledore paused at the door. Miss Adams is waiting at the statue. I've cleared your path, the prefects are all conveniently occupied elsewhere. His eyes grew serious. Be careful, Harry. The Adams family's definition of success sometimes differs from what others might hope for. With that cryptic warning, he was gone. Your headmaster found you, Wednesday stated when Harry arrived at the statue. It wasn't a question. How did you? You're 7 minutes late, and your aura shows traces of anxiety and relief. Wednesday tapped the witch's hump. Descendium. The passage opened, and Wednesday slipped inside with practiced ease. You've used this before, Harry noted, following her. I've explored the castle thoroughly since arriving. Your Marauder's map is quite useful. Harry stopped short. How do you know about my map? I borrowed it last night while you were sleeping. You broke into Gryffindor Tower. Harry was both impressed and disturbed. Breaking implies force. I simply walked in. Your fat lady is quite susceptible to certain old-world charms. Wednesday lit her wand as they proceeded down the tunnel. Dumbledore is allowing this expedition. Reluctantly. Harry matched her pace. He gave me Felix Felicis for when we deal with my scar. Wednesday nodded approvingly. Sensible. The ritual has a 70% survival rate. 70%. Harry squeaked. Better odds than you currently have against Voldemort. She glanced back at him. Don't worry. I've performed 3 successful human sacrifices, though admittedly, those weren't meant to be survivable. Harry wasn't sure if she was joking. Her deadpan delivery made it impossible to tell. The ring is cursed, Wednesday continued. Nasty curse, kills slowly, painfully. We'll need to neutralize it before destroying the Horcrux. How? I brought supplies. She patted a small black bag that seemed to move slightly of its own accord. My mother's best bloodroot poison, a severed hand from our butler Lurch, and Great Aunt Crimson's curse-eating beetles. Harry decided not to ask for details. They emerged from Honeydook's cellar and slipped out into the night. Wednesday led them not toward the main road but around the back of the village toward the surrounding mountains. I thought the ring was at Voldemort's mother's house, Harry said. It is. In Little Hangleton. Wednesday pointed to a thestral emerging from the trees. Our transportation. You can see thestrals too? Harry asked. Wednesday's lips curved slightly. I've always seen them. Beautiful creatures. My mother used to tell me bedtime stories about the horses of death. She approached the thestral, stroking its skeletal nose. The creature nuzzled her hand affectionately. They like you, Harry observed. Death's creatures recognize their own. Wednesday mounted the thestral with practiced ease. Come, Potter. The night grows old, and we have several souls to send to the afterlife. As they soared into the night sky, Harry realized he'd just abandoned Hogwarts on a Horcrux hunt with a girl who treated death like an old friend. It was either the bravest or stupidest thing he'd ever done. Probably both. The gaunt shack looked even more decrepit than in Dumbledore's memory. Vines had completely overtaken one wall, and the roof sagged dangerously in the middle. The door hung from a single rusted hinge. Charming, Wednesday commented, sliding off the thestral. Very Adams aesthetic. Harry dismounted less gracefully. There are protection spells all around it. Dumbledore nearly died trying to destroy this Horcrux. Your Dumbledore approaches magic with a wizard's limitations. Wednesday reached into her bag and pulled out a small glass jar containing what looked like mummified beetles. I approach it from an Adams perspective. She uncorked the jar and whispered something in a language Harry didn't recognize. The beetles stirred, then flew from the jar in a black cloud. As they approached the shack, the air around it seemed to ripple with defensive spells. The beetles swarmed into the magical barrier, and Harry heard a sound like glass cracking. What are they doing? Eating the curses. Wednesday watched with satisfaction. Raised on a diet of my grandmother's hexes. They find Voldemort's work rather bland in comparison. Within minutes, the beetles returned, their bodies glowing faintly with absorbed magic. Wednesday held out the jar, and they obediently flew back inside. Remind me never to visit your grandmother, Harry muttered. She'd like you. She has a soft spot for boys marked by death. Wednesday approached the shack. Stay behind me. The interior was a single room filled with collapsed furniture and decades of dust. In the center of the rotted floorboards, something glinted dully in the wan light. There, Wednesday pointed. The ring sat innocently on the floor, a black stone set in tarnished gold. Harry felt a strange pull toward it, an urge to pick it up and turn it 3 times in his hand. Wednesday's arm blocked him. The stone is calling to you. Resist it. What is it? Harry asked, shaking his head to clear the compulsion. The Resurrection Stone. Wednesday's voice held rare respect. One of the Deathly Hallows. The what? Children's story here. Family history to others. Wednesday carefully withdrew the black dagger. Cover your ears. Before Harry could comply, she stabbed the ring. Unlike the diadem, this Horcrux fought back violently. A shock wave of magic exploded outward, throwing Harry against the wall. Ghostly apparitions rose from the ring, James and Lily Potter, Sirius, Cedric, all with accusing eyes. You failed us, Ghost James hissed. You'll die like us, Lily's specter whispered. Wednesday seemed unaffected by the psychological attack. She twisted the dagger deeper into the ring, speaking rapid words in that strange language again. The ghosts turned toward her, changing form, a tall, imposing man with a mustache, a woman with flowing black hair, 2 children. Adam's blood is not so easily turned against itself, Wednesday said calmly to the apparitions. We embrace death, not fear it. The ring gave a final shriek as black smoke poured from it. The ghosts dissipated, and the oppressive feeling in the shack lifted. Wednesday picked up the damaged ring carefully. 2 down. Harry pushed himself up from the floor, shaking. Those people I saw. The Horcrux defending itself, using your fears against you. Wednesday examined the stone. But this is genuinely powerful. A true halo. She offered it to Harry. He hesitated. It can recall shades of the dead, she explained. Not truly bring them back, but allow conversation. Temporary comfort. Harry's hand trembled as he reached for it, then pulled back. No. I don't think that's a good idea. Wednesday nodded, something like approval in her eyes. Wise. The dead should rest. She pocketed the stone. The locket next. It was moved from the cave by someone with the initials R.A.B. Regulus Arcturus Black, Harry said suddenly. Sirius's brother. He was a Death Eater who defected. Wednesday tilted her head. You're more useful than I anticipated. Coming from her, Harry suspected that was high praise. If Regulus took it, it might be at Grimmauld Place. Harry pulled out the mirror Dumbledore had given him. We should update the headmaster. Dumbledore's face appeared in the glass. Harry, Miss Adams. I see you've survived the ring. We're heading to Grimmauld Place for the locket, Harry explained. Curious. I searched the house thoroughly when the order took residence. Did you ask the house elf? Wednesday inquired. A pause. An oversight on my part, Dumbledore admitted. Be careful. Bellatrix Lestrange has been seen in London. Excellent, Wednesday said, in a tone that suggested she genuinely looked forward to the encounter. We'll contact you once we have the locket. As they mounted the Thestral again, Harry glanced at Wednesday's profile in the moonlight. You actually want to run into Bellatrix, don't you? My mother always taught me to network with interesting witches, Wednesday replied. And I've heard such promising things about her torture techniques. Harry decided that was another joke he wouldn't try to decipher. Grimmauld Place loomed dark and forbidding, exactly how Wednesday seemed to prefer buildings. As they approached the front door, she ran her fingers along the serpent knocker with something like fondness. The Blacks had good taste, she murmured. Inside, the house was silent and musty. Harry called out, Creature. A crack announced the house elf's arrival. He took one look at Wednesday and dropped into a deep bow. Mistress Adams. Creature is honored. The noble Black family has spoken of the Adams connections for generations. Wednesday inclined her head regally. Rise, servant of the ancient and most noble house of Black. We seek an item that Regulus Black charged you to destroy, a locket. Creature burst into noisy tears. Mistress knows. Mistress has come to finish Master Regulus's work. After some coaxing, Creature retrieved the locket from his nest of treasured items. It pulsed with dark energy, the serpentine S glinting malevolently. How did you know to address him that way? Harry whispered as Creature shuffled away to make them tea. Old families have protocols, Wednesday replied, examining the locket. The Blacks and Adamses exchanged formal visits until the early 1900s. My great-grandmother considered Elidora Black a delightfully vicious conversationalist, according to our family records. She placed the locket on the kitchen table and drew out her dagger once more. This time, however, the locket proved more difficult. It won't open, she noted after several attempts. And it must be opened to be destroyed properly. Parseltongue, Harry suggested. Slytherin's locket would respond to snake language. Wednesday gave him an appraising look. You continue to be useful, Potter. Harry leaned toward the locket and hissed, open. The locket clicked open, and immediately a tornado of darkness erupted from within. This time, the defense was more sophisticated than ghostly visions. A fully formed shade of Tom Riddle emerged, handsome and terrible. Wednesday Adams, it purred, circling her. Your family would have served me well. I could show you magics even the Adams library doesn't contain. Wednesday watched the apparition with clinical detachment. My family serves no one. The shade turned to Harry. And Harry Potter. Still following others, letting them lead you to your death. Your parents died for nothing. Sirius died for nothing. And now you'll die for nothing. Harry gripped his wand. You're wrong. Am I? The shade laughed. Look at her, Harry. The Addams girl. Do you think she cares if you live or die? You're a tool to her, just as you are to Dumbledore. Wednesday moved so fast Harry barely saw it. She plunged the dagger directly into the center of the locket while the shade was focused on Harry. Black smoke erupted, and the shade let out an inhuman scream before dissipating. In the sudden silence, Creature sobbed quietly from the corner. Master Regulus is avenged, he whimpered. Thank you, Mistress Addams, thank you. Wednesday slipped the destroyed locket into her bag. 3 down. The cup next. It's in the Lestrange vault at Gringotts. Breaking into Gringotts is impossible, Harry said. Wednesday's dark eyes gleamed. Nothing's impossible when you're an Addams. But first, we need to sleep. Dawn approaches, and we'll need our strength. As they settled into rooms at Grimmauld Place, Harry found himself unable to sleep right away. The shade's words echoed in his mind, do you think she cares if you live or die? He wasn't sure if Wednesday cared about anything besides completing her self-assigned mission. Yet she'd been straightforward from the beginning, which was more than he could say for many adults in his life. When Harry finally drifted off, he dreamed of Wednesday standing in a graveyard, surrounded by open graves, looking more at home than he'd ever seen her. Absolutely not, Harry said the next morning, staring at Wednesday. That's the worst plan I've ever heard. It's direct and efficient. Wednesday continued packing strange items into her bag. The goblins respect strength and cunning, not politeness. You want to walk into Gringotts and threaten the goblins with an Addams family blood feud unless they let you into the Lestrange vault. The Addams-Goblin Treaty of 1756 gives us certain privileges. Wednesday handed Harry a vial. Drink this. It will temporarily change your appearance. Harry sniffed the vial suspiciously. What is it? Essence of Metamorphosis. My cousin Metamorpha developed it before her unfortunate incident with the taffy puller. Is it safe? Define safe. When Harry glared, she added, the effects last 4 hours and are completely reversible. Usually. Harry hesitated, then downed the potion. Immediately, his skin bubbled and shifted. His hair lengthened and darkened to match Wednesday's, his eyes became the same fathomless black, and his features rearranged themselves subtly. There. Wednesday looked satisfied. Now you're my brother, Wednesday. I mean Wendell Addams. You didn't warn me I'd look like your brother. Family resemblance makes our story more credible. She headed for the door. Come along, brother dear. The goblins await. Outside, they found not the Thestral but a sleek black carriage drawn by skeletal horses that weren't quite Thestrals, their eyes glowed red, and their hooves left smoking imprints on the pavement. Nightmare steeds, Wednesday explained, climbing in. Grandfather keeps a stable. I called them while you slept. The carriage moved with unnatural speed through London, arriving at the marble steps of Gringotts within minutes. As they entered, Harry noticed the goblins going still, watchful eyes following Wednesday's progress across the floor. She approached the head teller and spoke in a clear voice that carried throughout the suddenly silent bank. I am Wednesday Addams of the Addams family. I invoke the right of familial inspection under the Treaty of 1756, Section 3, Paragraph 7. The goblin's eyes widened. The Addams family has not invoked that right in over a century. We invoke it now. Wednesday's tone brooked no argument. The Lestrange vault contains an item of concern to my family. A violation of death's domain. Murmurs spread among the goblins. The head teller snapped his fingers, and an older goblin appeared from a side door. I am Ragnarok, director of Gringotts London, he said, eyeing Wednesday warily. The treaty does indeed grant the Addams family certain privileges. However, we require proof of your identity. Wednesday drew a small black box from her bag. Inside was a finger bone that seemed to glow with a sickly light. "The remains of Grandfather Adams, who signed your treaty," she said calmly. "His bone recognizes his blood." She pricked her finger with her dagger and let a drop of blood fall on the bone. It flared with blue fire, then settled. Ragnock nodded stiffly. "Follow me, Miss Adams. The treaty allows one family member and one companion. My brother Wendell," Wednesday gestured to Harry, "and no companion. This is family business." They followed Ragnock to the carts. As they descended into the depths of Gringotts, Harry leaned close to Wednesday. "How does your family have a treaty with the goblins?" he whispered. "Great-great-grandfather Accipiter Adams threatened to raise their dead if they didn't return a disputed inheritance," she replied. "The goblins decided negotiation was preferable to facing their ancestors' wrath. We've had a mutually fearful relationship ever since." The Lestrange vault was deep underground, protected by a dragon. Wednesday studied the scarred, partially blind creature with what looked like genuine sympathy. "Barbaric," she murmured. "Dragons should roam free, burning villages and devouring maidens as nature intended." Ragnock used a series of clankers to move the dragon aside. "The Lestrange vault has additional protections. Anything you touch will burn and multiply. Gemino and flagranti curses," Wednesday noted. "Unimaginative." She reached into her bag and withdrew Lurch's severed hand. Harry tried not to recoil as the hand crawled from her grasp and scuttled into the vault like a pale spider. "Things, cousin," Wednesday explained. "Very helpful for retrieving items one cannot touch." The hand moved purposefully through the vault, navigating around treasures that began to multiply and glow hot wherever the fingers brushed them. Finally, it located a small golden cup with a badger engraved on it. Grasping it firmly, the hand returned to the vault entrance and presented the cup to Wednesday with a flourish. "Thank you," she told the hand, which gave her a thumbs up before crawling back into her bag. "The treaty specifies you may inspect, not remove items," Ragnock said sharply. Wednesday fixed him with her unblinking stare. "This item contains a fragment of a wizard's soul obtained through murder. It violates the natural order that the Adams family is sworn to maintain. Would you prefer I destroy it here?" Ragnock paled. "You may remove it for appropriate disposal." Back in the cart, Harry exhaled in relief. "I can't believe that worked. People, and goblins, fear what they don't understand," Wednesday replied, examining the cup. "My family has cultivated not being understood for generations." They emerged from Gringotts into bright daylight, Wednesday carefully shielding the cup in her bag. They had almost reached the carriage when a woman's voice called out. "Well, well. What do we have here?" "Students out of school." Bellatrix Lestrange stood blocking their path, wand drawn and a maniacal grin on her face. Behind her were two masked Death Eaters. "Bellatrix Lestrange," Wednesday said, sounding almost pleased. "My mother mentioned you. She admired your work during the First War. Creative use of entrails, apparently." Bellatrix faltered, clearly not expecting this response. "Who are you?" "Wednesday Adams." She stepped forward, unafraid. "I've been looking forward to meeting a witch of your distinctive talents." Harry tensed, ready to draw his wand, but Wednesday's slight head shake stopped him. Bellatrix circled them predatorily. "Adams, the American family? The ones who dabble in death magic?" Her eyes narrowed. "What brings an Adams to London?" "Professional curiosity." Wednesday's voice remained monotone. "I'm studying different approaches to torture and death. Your reputation precedes you." A look of pride crossed Bellatrix's face. "Does it now? Perhaps I could offer a demonstration." Her eyes flicked to Harry. "Starting with your companion. Wendell is my brother. Harm him, and my family would be displeased." Wednesday said it so matter-of-factly that even Bellatrix hesitated. "The Dark Lord would be interested in meeting an Adams," Bellatrix mused. Perhaps another time. Wednesday snapped her fingers, and the carriage door swung open. We have an appointment with a Hungarian horntail. Breeding experiment. Bellatrix's face showed conflicting emotions, suspicion warring with a bizarre professional respect. Finally, she lowered her wand slightly. Tell your mother Bellatrix Lestrange remembers the Adams reputation. We'll meet again, Wednesday Adams. With a swirl of her cloak, Bellatrix disapparated, her companions following. Harry let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That was too close. Disappointing, Wednesday countered as they climbed into the carriage. I'd hoped to see her infamous cruciatus firsthand. Trust me, you didn't, Harry muttered, remembering the Department of Mysteries. Once they were moving, Wednesday removed the cup from her bag. For down. She stabbed it without ceremony, and this time the death scream of the Horcrux was mercifully brief. Black smoke dissipated into the carriage, leaving behind the damaged cup. Only Nagini and me left, Harry said quietly. Nagini will be with Voldemort, Wednesday noted. We'll need to draw them out. Or break in, Harry suggested, thinking of Malfoy Manor, where Draco had boasted the Dark Lord was staying. Wednesday's eyes glinted. Breaking in is an Adams specialty. She pulled out the mirror. Update your headmaster. We move on Malfoy Manor tonight. As Harry explained their progress to a visibly impressed Dumbledore, he couldn't help but think that Wednesday Adams was the most terrifyingly efficient person he'd ever met. In just over 24 hours, she destroyed 4 Horcruxes that Dumbledore had spent years merely tracking. Tonight, they would face Voldemort himself. And after that? Harry touched his scar. After that came the part he was trying not to think about. Chapter 2, Death's Collectors. The sun sank behind the London skyline as Wednesday studied a crudely drawn map of Malfoy Manor. They'd taken refuge in a decrepit townhouse that Wednesday claimed belonged to a distant cousin thrice removed via guillotine. The place reeked of mildew and something else Harry couldn't identify but definitely didn't want to. According to my family's records, the Malfoy estate has 7 layers of ancestral wards. Wednesday traced her finger along the property line. Old magic, blood-based. Similar to what we use, but less enthusiastic. Enthusiastic? Harry raised an eyebrow. Our wards consume intruders. The Malfoys merely maim them. She shrugged like this was a design flaw. Their loss. Harry paced the dusty floor. Even if we get past the wards, Voldemort will sense me coming. My scar, our connection, works both ways. Wednesday looked up from the map. Not necessarily. She reached into her bag and pulled out what appeared to be a shrunken human skull. This belonged to Great-Uncle Corvus. He developed a rather inconvenient psychic connection with a voodoo priest. This blocked it. A skull. You want me to wear a skull? Just around your neck. The eye sockets go in front. Harry sighed. The past 36 hours had recalibrated his definition of weird, but still. Will it work? 73% chance. Wednesday pulled out a piece of chalk and began drawing an elaborate symbol on the floor. We'll need a distraction to get close. Something to draw attention away from the southeast corner where the ward matrix is anchored. Harry thought for a moment. Creature. The house elf? Death Eaters would never suspect a house elf of being a threat. And he's got a personal grudge against Bellatrix for what happened to Regulus. Wednesday's lips quirked slightly. Good thinking. Harry called for Creature, who appeared with a crack. Master calls Creature. The elf's eyes widened at the chalk symbols Wednesday was drawing. Creature, we need your help. Harry knelt to the elf's level. Would you be willing to create a distraction at Malfoy Manor so we can get inside and finish what Regulus started? Creature's eyes filled with tears. Creature would be honored to help Master Harry and Mistress Adams defeat the Dark Lord who betrayed good Master Regulus. Wednesday handed Creature a small glass vial filled with something glowing purple. Release this in the northwest corner of the property. It's harmless to house elves but will create quite a spectacle. What is it? Harry asked. Distilled banshee scream mixed with Adam's family phosphorescent fungi. She corked another vial. Creates the impression of spirits breaking through from the other side. Very distracting. Harry shook his head in amazement. Where do you get these ideas? Family summer camp. Wednesday continued her chalk drawing. While other children were making friendship bracelets, we were developing psychological warfare techniques. That explains so much about you. She ignored him. Once inside, we locate Nagini first. The snake stays close to Voldemort, but they're not always in the same room. We kill it, then escape. What about confronting Voldemort? Not until you're no longer carrying a piece of his soul. Wednesday finished her drawing, a complex spiral pattern with symbols Harry didn't recognize. But plans rarely survive contact with the enemy. Be prepared for anything. Harry nervously fingered the skull pendant Wednesday had given him. It felt unnaturally cold against his skin. What about the last Horcrux? The one in me? After Nagini. Wednesday's voice softened almost imperceptibly. One problem at a time, Potter. They approached Malfoy Manor under cover of darkness. Harry wore the invisibility cloak while Wednesday walked openly toward the gates in her funeral best black dress. Creature had gone ahead to plant their distraction. This is insane, Harry muttered as they reached the edge of the property. Insanity runs in my family, Wednesday replied calmly. It practically gallops. A moment later, the night exploded with eerie purple light from the opposite side of the manor. Unearthly wails echoed across the grounds as ghostly shapes materialized and dematerialized through the trees. That's our cue. Wednesday placed her hand on the ornate gate and whispered something that made Harry's ears hurt. The metal writhed beneath her fingers like a living thing, then melted away to create an opening. They slipped through, Harry staying close behind Wednesday under the cloak. Death Eaters rushed past them toward the disturbance, shouting orders and firing spells at the phantom apparitions. The wards are still active, Wednesday murmured. Stay exactly 3 paces behind me and step only where I step. She moved with uncanny precision, occasionally pausing to drop small objects, beetle wings, hair, something that looked disturbingly like teeth, at specific points. Each item dissolved into the ground with a soft hiss. Creating a path through the ward matrix, she explained without being asked. Grandfather taught me. He courted grandmother through the Bordeaux Necropolis ward system. Very romantic. They reached a small side entrance. Wednesday placed her palm against the door and closed her eyes. 3 people inside this wing. One barely human. One with a fractured soul like yours. And one. Her eyes opened, snake. Harry's scar prickled despite the skull pendant. Voldemort's in there. Yes. But distracted. The disturbance has him sending Lucius to investigate. Wednesday withdrew her black dagger. Nagini is in the drawing room with him. We wait for Lucius to leave, then I'll create another distraction. You take the snake. With what? The dagger destroys Horcruxes, but I need to kill the snake first. Wednesday reached into her bag and pulled out a sword with a glittering ruby hilt. Borrowed this from your headmaster's office. Apparently it presents itself to worthy Gryffindors in times of need. Harry stared at Gryffindor's sword. You just took it. Borrowed, she corrected. The sword wanted to come. It has a taste for serpent blood now. Before Harry could respond, the door opened. Lucius Malfoy emerged, looking harried and frightened. Deal with it, Lucius. I don't care what it takes. Voldemort's high, cold voice came from within. The door slammed shut behind Malfoy as he hurried toward the commotion. Wednesday waited until Lucius disappeared around the corner, then pulled a small mechanical spider from her pocket. She wound it up and placed it on the ground. Another distraction. Harry whispered. She nodded. Great Aunt Sanguina's crypt crawler. Very reliable. The spider scuttled under the door. Moments later, they heard crashes and screams from within. Wednesday pushed the door open. Now. They entered a dimly lit hallway. The sounds of chaos came from a room to the left, glass breaking, furniture overturning, and the outraged shrieks of what sounded like Bellatrix Lestrange. How dare this filth intrude? I'll skin it alive. Control your pet projects, Bella. Voldemort's fury was palpable even through the walls. Wednesday gestured toward another door. Drawing room. Nagini remained there. Harry tightened his grip on the sword and slipped through the indicated door, still under the cloak. The drawing room was grand but gloomy, with high ceilings and dark furniture. And there, coiled on an ornate rug before the fireplace, lay Nagini, enormous and menacing. The snake raised her head, tongue flicking. She could smell him despite the cloak. Harry moved carefully, positioning himself for a clean strike. One chance. That's all he'd have before all hell broke loose. He raised the sword and threw off the cloak in one motion. Nagini struck instantly, but Harry was ready. The sword flashed downward, slicing cleanly through the snake's neck just behind the head. A deafening, inhuman scream filled the room, not from the snake, but from the piece of soul escaping its vessel. Black smoke poured from the severed neck. Nagini. Voldemort's anguished cry came from the next room. Intruders. Harry grabbed the cloak and ran back to the hallway. Wednesday stood calmly, as if waiting for a train rather than in the middle of a Death Eater stronghold. 5 down, Harry gasped, showing her the bloodied sword. Time to leave. Wednesday pointed to a window. That way. The door behind them burst open. Voldemort stood framed in the doorway, his red eyes burning with fury. When he saw Wednesday, confusion briefly crossed his serpentine features. Who, Adams? Wednesday replied with a small curtsy that somehow managed to be mocking. Pleasure to destroy your life's work. Voldemort's wand raised. Avada, Wednesday threw something at his feet that exploded into thick, choking black smoke. She grabbed Harry's arm and pulled him toward the window. They crashed through glass and fell, Harry bracing for impact with the ground below. Instead, they landed on something leathery and warm, the Thestral, circling precisely where Wednesday had instructed it to wait. Up! Harry shouted. The Thestral beat its powerful wings, carrying them away from the manor just as curses began flying in their direction. Green light streaked past, missing them by inches. I can feel you, Potter. Voldemort's magically amplified voice boomed across the night. Your death approaches. Wednesday turned to look back at the diminishing figure of Voldemort standing in the broken window, Death Eaters gathering around him. He seems upset, she observed flatly. Harry let out a slightly hysterical laugh. We just killed his snake and destroyed his path to immortality. Upset might be an understatement. He knows we're hunting Horcruxes now. Wednesday's expression remained impassive, but Harry sensed tension in her voice. Which means he'll check the others. And discover they're already destroyed. Yes. Wednesday directed the Thestral east. This accelerates our timeline. We need to perform the ritual tonight. Harry's stomach clenched. Tonight? Where? A place of death and rebirth. Where his body returned. Wednesday's dark eyes fixed on Harry. The graveyard where he took your blood. Little Hangleton. Where Cedric had died. Harry's heart pounded painfully. Why there? The ritual requires symbolic balance. His resurrection using your blood created a magical tether. We'll use that tether to extract his soul fragment without killing you. Wednesday reached over and touched Harry's scar gently. The odds just improved to 82%. Because he used my blood to return. Harry's mind raced. The blood of the enemy from the ritual? Precisely. He anchored himself to life through you, creating a paradox. His Horcrux wants you dead, but his new body needs you alive. Wednesday looked almost impressed. Fascinating magical contradiction. Dumbledore said something similar. That Voldemort taking my blood might have changed something fundamental. Your headmaster is more perceptive than I gave him credit for. Wednesday pulled out the mirror. Call him. We'll need additional protection for the ritual. Harry activated the mirror, quickly explaining what had happened and what they planned next. Dumbledore's face showed concern but also determination. I'll meet you there with reinforcements, he promised. Harry, the Felix Felicis, I've got it. Harry patted his pocket where the golden veil sat safely. Take it before the ritual begins, Dumbledore instructed. Miss Adams, I trust your family's method will work, but, it will work, Wednesday stated with absolute certainty. The Adams family has been removing unwanted spiritual attachments for centuries. Usually from houses, occasionally from people. Successfully. Dumbledore pressed. Define success. When Dumbledore's expression darkened, she added, yes, headmaster. The subject typically survives with minimal psychological damage. Typically. Harry squeaked. In 73 cases out of 89, the subject retained complete cognitive function. Harry and Dumbledore exchanged alarmed glances through the mirror. Miss Adams, Dumbledore said carefully, perhaps we should discuss alternative approaches. There are none that preserve Potter's life, she replied bluntly. The Felix Felicis will help. And I've modified the ritual to account for his particular stubbornness. Harry wasn't sure if that was an insult or a compliment. With Wednesday, it was impossible to tell. Very well, Dumbledore finally relented. I'll meet you at Little Hangleton within the hour. Be careful. Voldemort will be searching for you now. The mirror went dark. Harry tucked it away, acutely aware that he was flying toward what might be his death. You're thinking morbid thoughts, Wednesday observed. How can you tell? Your aura darkens. It's quite dramatic. She adjusted her position on the thestral. Fear of death is unnecessary, you know. Easy for you to say. Your family practically worships it. We don't worship death. We accept it as an old friend who visits eventually. Wednesday's voice took on an unusual softness. But tonight is not your night for that visit, Harry Potter. It was the first time she'd used his first name. Somehow, that reassured him more than anything else. The Little Hangleton graveyard looked even more foreboding by moonlight than it had during Voldemort's resurrection. Mist clung to the tombstones, and the Riddle family crypt loomed on the small hill overlooking the area. Wednesday directed the thestral to land near the grave of Tom Riddle Sr. She slid off gracefully and immediately began unpacking items from her seemingly bottomless bag. His father's bones were used in the resurrection ritual, she noted, examining the disturbed grave. Good. The connection remains strong. Harry dismounted less gracefully, his legs shaky. The memories of this place threatened to overwhelm him, Cedric falling, Wormtail cutting his arm, Voldemort rising from the cauldron. A cool hand touched his arm. Wednesday stood before him, her dark eyes fixed on his face. Stay present, she instructed. The past is prologue. Tonight we write the final chapter. Harry took a deep breath. What do you need me to do? Drink the Felix Felicis. Then help me prepare the ritual space. Harry uncorked the tiny vial and swallowed the golden liquid. Immediately, warmth spread through him, and the crushing anxiety lifted. He felt, not confident exactly, but certain. Whatever happened tonight was meant to happen. Together, they cleared an area between several graves. Wednesday used her chalk to draw an intricate pattern on the ground, a spiral containing symbols and runes that shifted slightly when Harry wasn't looking directly at them. Adam's family soul extraction ritual, she explained as she worked. Modified for your specific case. You've done this before. Not personally. But I've assisted Grandmama 3 times. Wednesday placed black candles at specific points around the spiral. Once for a possessed neighbor, once for a haunted painting, and once for cousin Itt after an unfortunate encounter with a Dybbuk. All successful? Harry asked hopefully. The neighbor survived but developed an amusing phobia of spatulas. The painting now only screams on Tuesdays. And cousin Itt's hair grew back eventually. She shrugged. Mostly successful. Harry decided not to ask for more details. Wednesday continued arranging items around the spiral, small bones, jars of suspicious-looking substances, a silver knife, and a black mirror. Finally, she placed a cauldron at the center. The ritual has 3 phases, she explained. First, we prepare the vessel that will receive the soul fragment. Second, we extract it from your scar. Third, we bind and neutralize it. Will it hurt? Harry asked, Felix Felicis making him curiously detached from the question. Like nothing you've experienced before, Wednesday replied with brutal honesty. But pain is just weakness leaving the body. Or in this case, someone else's soul. A series of pops announced the arrival of Dumbledore, accompanied by McGonagall, Snape, and several Order members. They formed a perimeter around the graveyard, wands at the ready. Dumbledore approached, taking in the ritual preparations with obvious concern. Miss Adams, I must insist on understanding this ritual before we proceed. Wednesday handed him a small, ancient-looking book. Page 782. The annotations are my grandmother's. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose higher with each page he turned. This is extraordinarily complex soul magic. Borderline necromancy in places. Borderline. Wednesday almost sounded offended. It's full necromancy, headmaster. But with proper intent. And the blood requirement? Dumbledore asked sharply. Minimal. And all his. She pointed to Harry. The connection provides the bridge. His blood forms the path. My family's magic guides the extraction. Dumbledore studied the book for several more minutes while Order members secured the area. Finally, he closed it with a sigh. It's theoretically sound, he admitted. Though I confess I've never seen anything quite like it. The Adams Grimoire isn't available in your restricted section, Wednesday said dryly. We guard our secrets carefully. Evidently. Dumbledore turned to Harry. Are you prepared, Harry? This is your choice. The Felix Felicis hummed in Harry's veins. He looked at the ritual circle, at Wednesday's calm confidence, at Dumbledore's concerned face. The right path seemed clear. I'm ready. Wednesday nodded once. Remove your shirt and lie down in the center of the spiral. The cauldron will be at your head. Harry complied, the cool night air raising goosebumps on his skin. The ground was hard and cold beneath him. Wednesday knelt beside him with the silver knife. A small cut, she explained. 3 drops in the cauldron. No more, no less. The knife stung as it sliced across his palm. Wednesday held his hand over the cauldron, counting precisely 3 drops before pressing a black cloth to the wound. Now for the invocation. She moved to his head, placing her hands on either side of his face, cool fingers framing his scar. Close your eyes. Think of the moment the connection was formed. The night your parents died. Harry's mind filled with green light and his mother's screams. Whether memory or imagination, he couldn't tell. Wednesday began to chant in a language that seemed to slither through the air. The words themselves felt wrong somehow, as if human mouths weren't meant to form them. The temperature around them plummeted. The Order members shifted nervously. McGonagall whispered something to Dumbledore, who shook his head grimly. Too late to stop now, Harry heard Snape mutter. The chanting grew louder. Harry's scar erupted in pain that made the Felix Felicis falter. It felt like someone was driving a red-hot poker directly into his brain. He gritted his teeth, determined not to scream. Wednesday's hands pressed more firmly against his temples. "Fight it, Potter. It knows what we're doing." The Horcrux was resisting, Harry realized. He could feel it clawing at his mind, desperate to remain anchored. Images flashed behind his closed eyelids, his parents dying, Sirius falling through the veil, Ron and Hermione lying dead. Psychological defense, Wednesday's voice cut through the visions. "Not real. Focus on my voice." Harry clung to her words like a lifeline. The pain intensified until he couldn't hold back anymore. A scream tore from his throat. "Now!" Wednesday shouted. Something shifted. Harry felt as if his skull was being split open, but rather than more pain, there came a strange pulling sensation. Like poison being drawn from a wound. "It's working," Dumbledore said from somewhere nearby. "The connection is weakening." Wednesday's chanting reached a crescendo. Harry's back arched involuntarily as something dark and oily seemed to seep from his scar. It hovered in the air between his forehead and the cauldron, a writhing mass of malevolence. Vessel prepared. Extraction complete. Final phase, Wednesday intoned. Her dagger flashed in the moonlight as she stabbed directly into the floating darkness. The soul fragment screamed, not with a human voice but with something ancient and twisted. Black smoke billowed upward as the fragment dissolved. Then silence fell. Harry lay gasping, his body trembling with aftershocks. His scar burned fiercely, but differently than before, a clean, healing pain rather than the corrupt ache he'd lived with for years. Wednesday sat back on her heels, a thin sheen of sweat the only sign of exertion. "6 down." Dumbledore rushed forward, waving his wand over Harry in complex diagnostic patterns. "Extraordinary," he breathed. "The connection is severed completely." Harry struggled to sit up, dizzy but determined. "It's gone." "Really gone?" "Yes." Wednesday wiped her dagger on a black cloth. "You're just Harry Potter now. No extra passengers." McGonagall conjured a blanket and wrapped it around Harry's shoulders. "You need the hospital wing, Potter." "No time," Harry said, wobbling to his feet. "Voldemort will know by now. He'll come for us." "Harry's right," Dumbledore agreed grimly. "Tom will have felt the destruction of this final Horcrux. He knows he's mortal now." "Then we end this tonight," Harry said, the Felix Felicis giving his words certainty. "Here. Where it began." "You're in no condition to duel the Dark Lord," Snape objected. "He won't be dueling alone," Wednesday said, standing at Harry's side. She looked at Dumbledore. "You know what must happen." "The prophecy." Dumbledore nodded slowly. "Either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives." "I can weaken him," Wednesday said. "My family's magic affects the soul directly. But Potter must strike the final blow." Harry felt strangely calm. "I'm ready." A sudden chill swept through the graveyard. Mist thickened around the tombstones, and the candles from Wednesday's ritual flickered wildly. "He comes," Dumbledore said quietly. "Everyone to positions." Order members spread out, disillusioning themselves among the graves. Dumbledore squeezed Harry's shoulder once, then moved to a position near the Riddle Crypt. Wednesday handed Harry his wand and the sword of Gryffindor. "When the moment comes, you'll know." "How?" "Death whispers when it's time." Her dark eyes held his. "Listen for it." Before Harry could respond, the night exploded with the sounds of apparition. Dark figures materialized throughout the graveyard, Death Eaters by the dozens, surrounding them in a tightening circle. And then, at the crest of the hill, a lone figure appeared. Tall and skeletal, with gleaming red eyes and skin pale as a corpse. Lord Voldemort had arrived. Harry Potter, his high, cold voice carried easily through the mist. "We meet again in my father's resting place." "How sentimental of you." Voldemort's eyes shifted to Wednesday. "And you. The Addams girl. Your family has been neutral in wizarding conflicts for centuries. Why involve yourself now? You offend the natural order, Wednesday replied simply. Death comes for all eventually. Your attempts to circumvent it are unseemly. A terrible smile stretched Voldemort's lipless mouth. Death is for the weak. I have gone further than anyone, oh, please. Wednesday rolled her eyes, actually interrupting the Dark Lord. Herpo the Foul created the first Horcrux 3,000 years ago. My great-great-grandmother dated him briefly. Said he was unimaginative in bed. Stunned silence fell over the graveyard. Even the Death Eaters seemed shocked at her audacity. Voldemort's face contorted with rage. You dare, boring. Wednesday tapped her foot impatiently. Are we fighting or exchanging family histories? Voldemort raised his wand. Avada Kedavra. The green light shot toward Wednesday, who didn't even attempt to move. Instead, she raised her hand, and the killing curse splashed against an invisible barrier, dissipating into the mist. Addams' family protection, she explained to a shocked Harry. Death doesn't take us until we're ready to go. The battle erupted around them. Order members engaged Death Eaters in fierce duels among the tombstones. Spells illuminated the fog in flashes of color. Dumbledore and Voldemort circled each other on the hillside, trading curses of extraordinary power. Wednesday grabbed Harry's arm. Stay close to me. We need to get you closer to him. They moved through the chaos, Wednesday deflecting curses with bizarre flicks of her wand that seemed to bend the spells back upon their casters. Harry blocked and dodged, the Felix Felicis guiding his movements with supernatural precision. Bellatrix appeared before them, cackling madly. Little Addams and Baby Potter, all alone in the graveyard. Wednesday stepped forward. Ms. Lestrange. You used the Cruciatus incorrectly. Bellatrix faltered. What? The intent matters. You focus on hatred. It should be pleasure in the pain itself. Wednesday's voice remained monotone. A subtle distinction but important for maximum effect. Don't lecture me on my signature curse, you little. Bellatrix raised her wand. Wednesday moved faster, twisting her wand in a motion Harry had never seen. Bellatrix froze, her eyes widening in shock as her body contorted unnaturally. Grandmama's favorite, Wednesday explained as Bellatrix writhed. Pain without damage. Leaves the mind intact to experience every sensation. Bellatrix collapsed, unconscious from the intensity of the pain. Wednesday stepped over her without a second glance. That was impressive, Harry managed. Family specialty. Wednesday pointed toward the hill where Dumbledore and Voldemort were still dueling. There. Your moment approaches. They fought their way closer, back to back. Harry stunned Death Eaters with precision while Wednesday employed increasingly disturbing spells that left their opponents either unconscious or wishing they were. A massive explosion rocked the hilltop. Dumbledore was thrown backward, landing hard against a large tombstone. Voldemort advanced on him, triumph in his red eyes. Now, Harry, Wednesday whispered. Harry sprinted forward, sword in one hand, wand in the other. Voldemort turned at his approach, lips curling in a sneer. Harry Potter. The boy who lived, come to die. Voldemort raised his wand. Your protections are gone now. I can feel it. The connection severed. Nothing shields you from death any longer. That works both ways, Harry replied, stopping 10 feet from Voldemort. You're mortal now, Tom. All your Horcruxes destroyed. Fear flickered across Voldemort's face, quickly replaced by rage. Impossible. The diadem, Harry began, circling slowly. The locket. The cup. The ring. Nagini. And the peace in me. All gone. Lies. Voldemort's fury made the ground tremble. Avada Kedavra. Harry dodged, the Felix Felicis making his movements fluid and precise. You feel it, don't you? The vulnerability. The fear. The knowledge that death waits for you like everyone else. Voldemort attacked again, his spells growing wilder and less controlled. Harry continued to evade, waiting for his moment. Wednesday appeared behind Voldemort, moving silently through the shadows. She caught Harry's eye and nodded once. Your time is up, Tom, Harry said firmly. You're just a man now. Nothing special. Nothing extraordinary. I am Lord Voldemort, he screamed, raising his wand for another killing curse. Wednesday struck first. She plunged her black dagger into the ground at Voldemort's feet, completing a circle Harry hadn't even noticed she'd been creating. The earth trembled, and ghostly hands erupted from the soil, grasping at Voldemort's robes. What is this magic? Voldemort snarled, slashing at the spectral hands. The dead want to meet you, Tom, Wednesday said calmly. They've been waiting a long time. The distraction was all Harry needed. He charged forward, the sword of Gryffindor gleaming in the wandlight. Voldemort turned too late, his killing curse going wide as Harry drove the sword through his chest. Time seemed to freeze. Voldemort's red eyes widened in shock and, finally, fear. His white hands clutched at the blade protruding from his chest. Potter. He gasped. It's just death, Tom, Harry said quietly. The next great adventure. Light faded from the red eyes. The body that had been Lord Voldemort crumpled to the ground, the sword still embedded in his chest. Around the graveyard, Death Eaters clutched their arms in agony as the dark mark burned and faded. The battle quieted as realization spread. Voldemort had fallen. This time, there was no coming back. Harry stood over the body, numb with exhaustion and shock. Wednesday moved to his side, looking down at Voldemort's corpse with clinical interest. Interesting, she observed. His body's decaying rapidly. The magical transformations were sustained by his life force. Indeed, the serpentine features were already softening, shifting back towards something more human as death reclaimed Tom Riddle at last. Dumbledore limped toward them, his face showing both pain and profound relief. It's over, he said simply. You've done it, Harry. Order members were rounding up surrendering Death Eaters. The sounds of additional apparition marked the arrival of Ministry officials, late as usual. How do you feel? Wednesday asked Harry, her voice neutral but her eyes searching his face. Harry considered the question. The scar on his forehead, his constant companion for 16 years, felt different. Silent. The ever-present awareness of Voldemort that had lingered in the back of his mind was gone, leaving a strange emptiness. Lighter, he finally said. Like I've put down something heavy I didn't know I was carrying. Wednesday nodded as if this confirmed something. That's normal after soul extraction. The absence takes time to fill with your own essence. Reporters began operating at the edges of the graveyard, cameras flashing. Ministry officials pushed toward Harry, faces eager with questions and congratulations. We should go, Wednesday said, eyeing the approaching crowd with distaste. I dislike celebrations. Harry nodded gratefully. He'd had enough attention for one lifetime. Back to Hogwarts? Yes. A ghost of a smile touched Wednesday's lips. I believe I've completed my research project ahead of schedule. Dumbledore created a portkey from a broken tombstone. This will take you directly to my office. I'll handle things here. He looked at Wednesday with newfound respect. Miss Adams, your family's knowledge proved invaluable. Please convey my gratitude to them. I'll tell grandmother you found her soul extraction ritual fascinating but disturbing, Wednesday replied. She'll be delighted. They reached for the portkey. As the graveyard swirled away, Harry caught a final glimpse of Voldemort's body, already more Tom Riddle than monster, death returning what humanity had been corrupted in life. Hogwarts was eerily quiet when they arrived in Dumbledore's office. Dawn was just breaking, painting the windows with pale golden light. Fawkes trilled softly from his perch, the phoenix song washing over Harry like a healing balm. "We did it," Harry said, the reality finally sinking in. "He's really gone." Wednesday brushed cemetery dirt from her dress. "Your prophecy is fulfilled. Your life is your own now." Harry looked at her, really looked at her. In just 3 days, this strange, macabre girl had accomplished what had seemed impossible. She'd identified the Horcruxes, destroyed them efficiently, removed the fragment from his scar, and helped defeat Voldemort. "Thank you," he said simply. "I don't know how to, no gratitude necessary." Wednesday cut him off. "The unnatural must be corrected. Balance must be maintained." "Still." Harry hesitated, then offered his hand. "Friends?" Wednesday looked at his hand for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she took it in her cool, pale grip. "Acquaintances with mutual respect," she counteroffered. Harry laughed. "I'll take it." The office door burst open. Hermione and Ron tumbled in, faces frantic with worry. "Harry!" Hermione threw herself at him. "We just heard. The whole school's talking about it. You and that Adams girl disappeared, and now there are reports Voldemort's dead." "Bloody hell, mate," Ron stared at him in awe. "You actually did it?" "We did," Harry confirmed, the exhaustion finally catching up to him. "All the Horcruxes destroyed. Voldemort's gone for good." Ron turned to Wednesday, who was watching the emotional display with mild distaste. "And you helped?" "Why?" "Academic curiosity," she replied flatly. "And my family has a long-standing interest in proper death protocols." Hermione's eyes narrowed. "The Addams family practices death magic, necromancy, and soul arts that most wizards consider unethical." "How wonderfully concise," Wednesday remarked. 10 points to Gryffindor. McGonagall entered the office next, followed by several other professors. The room quickly filled with questions and exclamations as the news spread throughout the castle. Harry found himself shuffled from person to person, receiving tearful thanks and congratulations. Through it all, he kept looking for Wednesday, but she had skillfully extracted herself from the crowd and now stood by the window, watching the sunrise with detached interest. When he finally managed to break away and approach her, she spoke without turning. "I'll be leaving today. My research is complete." "So soon?" Harry was surprised by his own disappointment. "You just got here." "I came for a specific purpose." She finally faced him. "Hogwarts is too cheerful for prolonged exposure." "Where will you go?" "Home. The family will want a full report." Something close to amusement flickered in her eyes. "Pugsley will be devastated he missed the graveyard battle. Exploding tombstones are his specialty." Harry tried to imagine what the rest of the Addams family might be like if Wednesday was their idea of normal. The thought was both terrifying and strangely fascinating. "Will I see you again?" he asked. "Perhaps." Wednesday tilted her head slightly. "Cousin What is planning a destination wedding next summer. Something appropriately tragic on a cliffside during a thunderstorm. You could attend." Harry wasn't sure if that was a genuine invitation or Wednesday's idea of a joke. Before he could decide, Dumbledore returned to the office, looking weary but triumphant. "It's official," he announced to the room. "Tom Riddle is confirmed dead by the Department of Mysteries. His followers are being rounded up as we speak." His eyes twinkled as they found Harry and Wednesday. "Thanks to the remarkable teamwork of our most unusual pair of students." Cheers erupted throughout the office. Professors and students alike celebrated the news, relief and joy washing over faces that had been strained with fear for too long. Wednesday winced at the noise. "I'll pack my things," she murmured to Harry. "We can exchange proper farewells later." As she slipped from the room, Harry felt a strange mixture of emotions. In just 1 week, Wednesday Addams had completely upended his life, identifying the Horcrux in his scar, methodically hunting down the others, and helping him defeat Voldemort once and for all. She'd been bizarre, macabre, and unsettling at every turn. And yet, Harry realized he would miss her peculiar brand of deadpan honesty. "She's quite remarkable, isn't she?" Dumbledore said quietly, appearing at Harry's side. Harry nodded. "Terrifying but remarkable. The Addams family has always walked a different path through the magical world," Dumbledore mused. "Neither light nor dark, but something else entirely. She said they maintain balance." An apt description. Dumbledore's eyes followed Wednesday's retreating form. "They understand death in ways few wizards ever achieve. It made her uniquely qualified to help with your particular problem." Harry touched his scar, still there, but now just a scar, nothing more. "Lucky for me." "Indeed." Dumbledore smiled. "Though I suspect luck had little to do with it. Fate has always taken a special interest in you, Harry." Harry thought about that as he was swept back into celebrations. Perhaps fate had sent Wednesday Addams to Hogwarts precisely when she was needed most. Or perhaps the Addams family simply had their own mysterious ways of knowing where balance needed restoration. Either way, Harry was grateful, for his life, for his freedom from Voldemort's soul fragment, and for the strange, pale girl who had accomplished in 1 week what others had deemed impossible for years. Later that evening, Harry found Wednesday in the astronomy tower, her belongings packed neatly in the same battered trunk she'd arrived with. She stood looking out over the Hogwarts grounds, the last rays of sunset casting long shadows across the landscape. "Your adoring public released you?" she asked without turning. "I snuck away." Harry joined her at the railing. "When do you leave?" "Now. My family's carriage arrives momentarily." She gestured to the sky, where a dark shape was approaching, a carriage similar to the one they'd used in London, but larger and pulled by 6 nightmares instead of 2. "That's dramatic," Harry observed. "We're an old family. We believe in maintaining traditions." Wednesday turned to face him fully. "Your world will change now. Are you prepared?" Harry considered the question. "Honestly? No. I've spent so long focused on surviving Voldemort that I never really thought about after. After is the interesting part." Wednesday handed him a small black book. "My address. If you ever require assistance with something particularly dark or deadly, write. We Addamses appreciate a good lethal challenge." Harry accepted the book with a smile. "Thank you. For everything. Don't become tediously ordinary, Potter." Wednesday's eyes held a warning. "You've walked with death and returned. That marks a person." "I don't think ordinary is in my future," Harry assured her. "Not after this week." The carriage descended from the darkening sky, landing with surprising grace on the tower platform. The door swung open, revealing a Gothic interior lit by flickering candles. Wednesday picked up her trunk. Thing, the disembodied hand, scuttled out from somewhere and perched on her shoulder. "Goodbye, Harry Potter," she said, offering her hand one final time. Harry took it, and on impulse, leaned in to kiss her cheek. "Goodbye, Wednesday Addams." For just a moment, a genuine smile curved her lips, small but real. Then her face returned to its usual deadpan expression. "If you ever die," she said as she stepped into the carriage, "do let me know. We could have an interesting conversation about the experience." With that peculiarly Wednesday farewell, the carriage door closed. The nightmares beat their wings, and the vehicle rose into the night sky, quickly disappearing among the stars. Harry stood watching long after it had vanished, the small black book clutched in his hand. 1 week had changed everything. Voldemort was gone. The Horcrux in his scar was destroyed. His future, uncertain but full of possibilities, stretched before him. All thanks to a pale girl in black who had strolled into Hogwarts and solved in days what had stumped the greatest wizards for years. As he turned to rejoin his friends, Harry couldn't help but smile. He had a feeling he hadn't seen the last of Wednesday Addams. And strangely enough, he was looking forward to their next meeting. After all, as Wednesday would say, death wasn't the end, just another interesting beginning. Chapter 3, Soul Fragments. The days following Voldemort's defeat passed in a blur for Harry. The wizarding world exploded with celebrations that made the aftermath of Voldemort's first downfall look tame by comparison. The Daily Prophet ran nothing but Voldemort-related headlines for a solid week, with "The Boy Who Conquered" splashed across the front page alongside photos of Harry looking uncomfortable. What bothered him most was how they barely mentioned Wednesday's role. A few articles referred to her as Harry Potter's mysterious Slytherin ally, or the American transfer student who assisted, but none captured her crucial contribution. Not that Wednesday would care, she'd left Hogwarts immediately after their victory, returning to her family without attending a single celebration. "You miss her," Hermione observed over breakfast one morning, catching Harry staring at the Slytherin table where Wednesday had briefly sat. "I don't miss her," Harry protested. "It's just weird how quickly she came and went. Solved a problem everyone thought was impossible, then disappeared." Ron snorted. "Be honest, mate. You're disappointed your creepy girlfriend left before you could properly snog her." "She wasn't my girlfriend," Harry spluttered, feeling his face heat up. "She was just Wednesday." "Exactly," Ron said with a knowing grin. "Never seen you so interested in someone who threatened to possibly sacrifice you in a ritual." "She didn't threaten to sacrifice me," Harry muttered. "She just acknowledged it was a possibility." Hermione rolled her eyes at both of them. "What I find fascinating is her family's approach to magic. The Addamses practice branches of magic most wizards consider taboo, but they use them for maintaining magical balance rather than personal gain." "Yeah, well, maintaining balance almost killed Harry," Ron pointed out. "Actually, it saved me," Harry corrected. "The Horcrux would have killed me eventually. Or Voldemort would have." The conversation paused as owls swooped into the great hall with the morning mail. An enormous raven, not an owl, circled down toward their table, causing students to duck as its massive wings passed overhead. It landed directly in front of Harry, dropping a small package wrapped in black paper before taking off again with a loud, ominous caw. "Blimey," Ron breathed. "Was that a raven?" "An Addams family courier," Hermione whispered, staring at the package. "I read about them. They're specially bred to deliver items that would disturb regular owls." Harry approached the package cautiously. The black paper seemed to absorb rather than reflect light, and a small silver card attached to it bore his name in elegant, spidery handwriting. "Are you going to open it?" Hermione asked. Harry nodded, carefully unwrapping the package. Inside was a small silver box and a note written on heavy parchment that smelled faintly of graveyard soil. "Potter, my family expresses their gratitude for your assistance in restoring Death's proper balance. Enclosed is a traditional Addams gift for those who survive encounters with our family rituals. Mother suggested including baked goods, but they don't travel well and tend to violate international transportation laws regarding toxic substances. Consider this a more practical token. Wednesday Addams. P.S. Pugsley remains disappointed about missing the graveyard battle. He's constructed a miniature replica and repeatedly destroys it with tiny explosives. Your figurine dies heroically each time." Harry set the note aside and opened the silver box. Inside lay a pendant on a thin silver chain, a small, perfectly formed crystal vial containing what appeared to be a swirling black mist. "What is it?" Ron asked, leaning forward. "I'm not sure," Harry admitted. "It's a soul fragment detector," Hermione said, examining it without touching. "Extremely rare. It reacts to the presence of damaged, displaced, or unnaturally preserved soul pieces." Harry stared at her. "How could you possibly know that?" "I've been researching the Addams family since Wednesday left," Hermione admitted. "They're mentioned in Darkest Artifacts of the Americas." This is actually quite a valuable gift, Harry. It ensures you'll never be caught unaware by soul magic again. Harry lifted the pendant, feeling its strange weight. The swirling mist inside seemed to pulse gently against the crystal. Practical, he murmured, remembering Wednesday's deadpan assessment of what made a good gift. He slipped the chain over his head, tucking the pendant beneath his shirt. It felt cool against his skin but not unpleasant, a reminder of the pale girl who had so briefly entered his life and changed everything. So, Ron said, breaking the moment, anyone else worried about the fact that her brother regularly blows up a miniature Harry? 3 weeks later, life at Hogwarts had settled into something resembling normalcy, though a normalcy unlike anything Harry had experienced before. Without Voldemort's shadow hanging over him, classes seemed almost trivially easy. Even Snape's perpetual hostility had diminished to mere dislike, as if the potion master's heart wasn't really in it anymore. Then came the letter from the Ministry. Death Eater trials begin next week, Harry told Ron and Hermione as they sat by the lake, enjoying a rare warm spring day. They want me to testify. Hermione frowned. That's a lot of pressure to put on you after everything you've been through. I don't mind, Harry said, surprising himself with the realization that he meant it. I want to make sure they all face justice this time. No more Malfoy-style escapes claiming Imperius. Speaking of Malfoy, Ron nodded toward the castle, wonder what'll happen to Draco. Harry followed his gaze. Draco Malfoy had become a shadow of his former self since his father's arrest. With Voldemort dead and Lucius facing life in Azkaban, the Malfoy heir skulked through the castle with his head down, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Dumbledore thinks he deserves a second chance, Harry said. He never actually took the mark. Only because he didn't get the chance, Ron argued. Maybe. Harry wasn't sure what to think anymore. The black and white certainties of wartime had given way to uncomfortable shades of gray. Wednesday said something interesting about him, actually. When did you discuss Malfoy with Wednesday? Hermione asked. Before the Gringotts break-in. She said he had the stink of coercion on him. That his aura showed more fear than malice. Ron rolled his eyes. Great. Now you're talking about auras. The Addams family has unusual magical sensitivities, Hermione pointed out. If Wednesday sensed Draco was acting from fear rather than conviction, still doesn't excuse being a bigoted git for 6 years, Ron interrupted. A flash of movement caught Harry's eye. Dumbledore was walking briskly across the grounds, his expression unusually grim. The headmaster spotted them and changed direction. Harry, he called as he approached. I was just coming to find you. Something rather concerning has developed. Harry stood. What's happened? Perhaps we should discuss this in private. Dumbledore's eyes flicked to Ron and Hermione. They stay, Harry said firmly. Whatever it is, I'll tell them anyway. Dumbledore sighed but nodded. Very well. We've received intelligence that Bellatrix Lestrange has escaped Ministry custody. Ron swore under his breath. Hermione gasped. How? Harry demanded. I thought she was under heavy guard at St. Mungo's. After Wednesday's unique spell had incapacitated her at the graveyard, Bellatrix had been taken to the secure ward at the Wizarding Hospital. The spell had left no physical damage but had apparently done something to her nervous system that healers couldn't reverse. That's the concerning part, Dumbledore said grimly. She shouldn't have been capable of walking, let alone escaping. The Addams family spell Miss Wednesday used was supposed to render her permanently incapacitated. But it didn't, Harry concluded. Either that, or she had help. Dumbledore looked troubled. The guards reported that shortly before her disappearance, Bellatrix began laughing uncontrollably and talking about the Mistress of Pain and how she'd found a worthy successor. A chill ran down Harry's spine as he remembered Wednesday's exchange with Bellatrix during the Gringotts encounter. You used the Cruciatus incorrectly. The intent matters. You focus on hatred. It should be pleasure in the pain itself. She admires Wednesday, Harry realized aloud. That's why she let us go at Diagon Alley. Professional respect. Indeed, Dumbledore confirmed. And now it seems Bellatrix has become rather fixated on Miss Adams. Given her mental instability and her newly unemployed status as Voldemort's lieutenant. She might go after Wednesday, Harry concluded, a knot forming in his stomach. Or she might attempt to recruit her, Dumbledore countered. The Addams family's affinity for what most would consider dark magic could be appealing to someone like Bellatrix. Harry shook his head firmly. Wednesday would never join her. The Addams family isn't evil, they're just different, Hermione supplied. Exactly. Dumbledore nodded thoughtfully. Nevertheless, I believe Miss Adams should be warned. The question is how to contact her. The Addams estate is unplottable and hidden by protections that make Hogwarts look positively accessible. Harry's hand went to the pendant beneath his shirt. I can contact her. 3 sets of eyes turned to him in surprise. She gave me this, Harry explained, pulling out the pendant. And her address. Said to write if I ever needed help with something particularly dark or deadly. I'd say Bellatrix qualifies, Ron muttered. Indeed she does, Dumbledore agreed. Write to Miss Adams immediately, Harry. And perhaps mention that Hogwarts would welcome her return visit under the circumstances. Harry nodded, already mentally composing his letter. As Dumbledore walked away, Hermione gave him a curious look. You never mentioned having Wednesday's address, she said. Harry shrugged. Didn't seem important at the time. Aha. Ron's tone was skeptical. Nothing to do with wanting to keep your creepy pen pal private. She's not Harry began, then stopped. Forget it. I need to write this letter. As they headed back to the castle, Harry couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that Bellatrix's escape was just the beginning of new troubles. The war might be over, but its aftershocks were far from finished. The response came 3 days later, not by Raven but by a courier that caused even greater disruption, a massive vulture with silver-tipped wings and intelligent yellow eyes that surveyed the great hall like it was considering which student might make the best meal. The vulture dropped a black envelope directly into Harry's porridge, then perched on the Gryffindor table, causing nearby students to scramble away in alarm. It fixed Harry with an expectant stare. I think it's waiting for a reply, Hermione whispered. Harry carefully opened the envelope, trying to ignore the vulture's unblinking gaze. Inside was a letter written on the same heavy parchment as before, the ink appearing to shift slightly between dark red and black depending on how the light hit it. Potter, your letter arrived at an opportune moment. Lestrange made contact yesterday, broke through our second-tier defenses and left a gift on the conservatory doorstep. A hand. Not hers, unfortunately. The accompanying note suggested a partnership between like minds, and contained numerous spelling errors. Mother found it charming. She's always appreciated enthusiasm in potential houseguests, if not their grammar. Father suggested we handle this, the Addams way, which typically involves manholes, quicksand, and carnivorous flora. However, given Lestrange's connection to your recently concluded war, I agree a more structured approach may be warranted. I will arrive at Hogwarts tomorrow evening. Have a room prepared in the dungeons. The darkness helps me think. Wednesday P.S. Pugsley asks if you could arrange for him to meet Hagrid regarding the acquisition of certain legally questionable creatures. I told him it was unlikely given your moral inclinations, but he insisted I ask. Harry read the letter twice, torn between concern over Bellatrix's contact with the Addams family and a strange flutter of anticipation at the thought of seeing Wednesday again. She's coming back, he told Ron and Hermione. Brilliant, Ron said sarcastically. Just when I'd gotten used to not having creepy death rituals around every corner. Don't be mean, Hermione chided. Wednesday helped defeat Voldemort. And now she's helping with Bellatrix. Harry scrawled a quick reply confirming the arrangements, which the vulture snatched up with surprising delicacy before taking off in a dramatic flurry of wings. I should tell Dumbledore, Harry said, already moving toward the staff table. But before he could take 3 steps, McGonagall intercepted him. Mr. Potter, the headmaster requests your presence in his office immediately. Her expression was grave. There's been another development with Bellatrix Lestrange. Harry's stomach dropped. What's happened? She struck again. This time closer to home. McGonagall's lips thinned into a hard line. The Dursleys' home was attacked last night. For a moment, Harry couldn't process the words. The Dursleys? But, they have protection. The blood wards expired when you turned 17, Potter. McGonagall's voice softened slightly. The Order had other protections in place, but Lestrange broke through them. Are they? Harry couldn't finish the question. They survived, McGonagall assured him. Your cousin was at university. Your aunt and uncle suffered some injuries but will recover. Their home, however, was destroyed. Relief washed over Harry, followed immediately by confusion. He'd never liked the Dursleys, and they'd certainly never liked him, but the idea of them being targeted because of him still felt wrong. Why would Bellatrix go after them, he wondered aloud. I believe the headmaster has some theories, McGonagall replied. The password is Pepper Imps. Harry hurried to Dumbledore's office, finding the headmaster pacing behind his desk when he arrived. Harry, Dumbledore greeted him, looking tired. I assume Minerva told you about the attack. Harry nodded. I don't understand why Bellatrix would target the Dursleys now. Voldemort's dead. What's the point? Revenge, perhaps. Dumbledore sank into his chair. Or more likely, she's attempting to draw you out. Make you vulnerable through your family. They're hardly family, Harry muttered, then immediately felt guilty. Whatever their treatment of him, the Dursleys didn't deserve to be tortured by a deranged Death Eater. Blood remains blood, Dumbledore said gently. And speaking of unexpected family connections, I understand Miss Adams will be joining us again. Harry handed him Wednesday's letter. Dumbledore read it, his eyebrows rising slightly. Most concerning that Bellatrix has already made contact with the Adams family, he observed. Though not entirely surprising. Bellatrix always had a peculiar fascination with old magical families who practiced unusual magic. Wednesday's not interested in joining her, Harry said firmly. Perhaps not. But the Adams family has historically maintained neutrality in wizarding conflicts. Their willingness to become involved in our war against Voldemort was unprecedented. Dumbledore handed the letter back. We should not assume they will continue that involvement now that their primary concern, the soul violations, has been addressed. Wednesday's coming to help, Harry insisted. She said so in her letter. Indeed she is, Dumbledore agreed. But perhaps we should consider why. Harry didn't have an answer for that. Wednesday's motivations had always been somewhat opaque, even when they'd been hunting Horcruxes together. The Adams family operated according to their own mysterious code, not light, not dark, but something else entirely. What do we do about the Dursleys? Harry asked, changing the subject. They've been relocated to a safe house under Fidelius' charm. Dumbledore sighed. Your aunt is displeased with the arrangements, to put it mildly. But they'll be safe until Bellatrix is captured. And what's the plan for that? That, Dumbledore said, is what I hope Miss Adams might help us determine. Bellatrix seems to have developed some manner of resistance to conventional tracking spells. Perhaps the Adams family has alternative methods. Harry nodded, remembering how Wednesday had effortlessly located each Horcrux. If anyone can find her, Wednesday can. Dumbledore studied him over his half-moon spectacles. You've developed quite a faith in Miss Adams's abilities. She hasn't let me down yet, Harry replied simply. A small smile touched Dumbledore's lips. Indeed not. Well then, we shall await her arrival with great anticipation. I've instructed the house elves to prepare quarters in the dungeons as requested, though I dare say they were somewhat puzzled by the specifications. Specifications? Miss Adams apparently sent ahead a list of preferred accommodations. It included requests for appropriately damp stone walls, minimal natural light, and proximity to the more melancholy castle ghosts. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. The Bloody Baron is reportedly quite flattered by the attention. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Harry couldn't help but smile. Wednesday Addams was returning to Hogwarts, and he had a feeling things were about to get very interesting again. Harry, Ron, and Hermione waited in the entrance hall that evening, watching as the sun dipped below the horizon. Dumbledore had said Wednesday would arrive at nightfall, but hadn't specified how. Maybe she'll come by Thestral again, Ron suggested. Hermione shook her head. Too far for a single Thestral flight from America. Portkey, then. Harry guessed. The Addams family rarely uses ministry-approved transportation, Hermione replied, clearly having done her research. They consider it too conventional. As if on cue, a low rumbling sound emanated from the ground beneath their feet. The stone floor trembled slightly, and a fine layer of dust drifted down from the ceiling. What the? Ron began. The front doors burst open on their own, revealing the darkening grounds beyond. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the earth before the castle began to crack and split, dirt and grass heaving upward as something massive pushed its way to the surface. A huge black vehicle erupted from the ground in a shower of soil. It looked like a cross between an antique hearse and a bizarre mechanical insect, with gleaming silver spikes protruding from its roof and wheels that appeared to be made of bone rather than rubber. Blimey, Ron breathed as the vehicle settled onto the lawn with a hiss of steam. The door swung open, and Wednesday Addams emerged, looking exactly as she had when she left, same black dress, same severe braids, same deadpan expression. The only difference was the small metal contraption strapped to her wrist, which appeared to be part watch, part compass, and part something Harry couldn't identify. Potter. Granger. Weasley. She nodded to each of them as she approached the entrance. The digging pod performed admirably. We made the transatlantic tunnel in record time. You tunneled here? Hermione asked faintly. From America? Pugsley's latest invention, Wednesday confirmed. Combines goblin drilling magic with Addams family grave excavation techniques. Much more pleasant than broomsticks. Harry stepped forward. It's good to see you, Wednesday. She tilted her head slightly. You look less haunted. Soul extraction suits you. Thanks. Harry gestured toward the castle. Dumbledore's waiting in his office. In a moment. Wednesday turned back to the vehicle and whistled sharply. The door opened again, and a tall, skeletal figure unfolded itself from the driver's seat. Harry recognized Lurch, the Addams family butler, from Wednesday's descriptions during their Horcrux hunt. The imposing man shuffled forward with a series of low groans that somehow formed words. You called. Mistress. Wednesday. Bring my luggage to the dungeons, Lurch. Then park the pod in the Forbidden Forest. The Acromantulas should provide adequate security. Lurch groaned what sounded like agreement and began unloading a series of bizarre trunks and cases, some of which appeared to be moving on their own. You brought your butler? Ron asked, looking stunned. Mother insisted, Wednesday explained. She said hunting psychopaths without proper household staff was uncivilized. Harry bit back a smile, oddly touched by the glimpse into Wednesday's family dynamics. Shall we go up to Dumbledore's office? Wednesday nodded, following Harry into the castle. As they walked, Harry noticed students stopping to stare, whispering behind their hands as the strange procession passed. Wednesday either didn't notice or didn't care about the attention. How long has Bellatrix been contacting your family? Harry asked as they climbed the stairs. 3 days. Increasingly elaborate overtures. Wednesday's voice remained monotone, but Harry detected a hint of irritation. Yesterday she left a severed unicorn tail with a poem attached. Rather poor meter. That's disturbing, Hermione said. Yes. Father says bad poetry is a sign of deeper instability. I meant the unicorn tail, Hermione clarified. Wednesday shrugged. The unicorn survived. The poem was far more offensive. They reached the gargoyle guarding Dumbledore's office. Harry gave the password, and they ascended the spiral staircase to find Dumbledore waiting with McGonagall, Snape, and somewhat surprisingly, Lupin. Miss Adams, Dumbledore greeted her warmly. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Wednesday nodded. Bellatrix Lestrange has graduated from admirer to nuisance. My family prefers to handle such transitions promptly. Indeed. Dumbledore gestured to the others. You remember Professors McGonagall and Snape, and this is Remus Lupin, a member of the Order of the Phoenix. Wednesday studied Lupin with open interest. Lycanthropy. Fascinating. My great-uncle Lupin would have appreciated meeting you. He spent 30 years attempting to achieve voluntary transformation. Lupin looked taken aback. Did he succeed? Partially. He managed the fangs and claws but never the fur. Quite disappointing for him. Wednesday turned back to Dumbledore. You have information on Lestrange's movements? Dumbledore nodded grimly. 3 sightings in the past week. First at St. Mungo's during her escape, then at the Dursleys' residence, and most recently near your family home. She appears to be following a pattern of escalation. Targeting what she perceives as Harry's weaknesses before moving on to potential allies, Wednesday concluded. Predictable but efficient. Do you have a way to track her? McGonagall asked. Wednesday reached into a pocket of her dress and withdrew what looked like a small black marble. This contains a fragment of the spell I used on her during our graveyard encounter. Magic leaves traces, especially pain magic. This will lead us to her. Snape leaned forward with professional interest. A sympathetic magical resonance locator. Paired with an Addams family blood tracker, Wednesday confirmed. I preserved a sample from the spell aftermath. Blood magic is heavily regulated by the Ministry, McGonagall pointed out with a frown. How fortunate my family isn't subject to British magical law, then. Wednesday placed the marble on Dumbledore's desk. This will need one final component to activate, something belonging to Lestrange. Something personal. The adults exchanged glances. We might have access to such an item, Dumbledore said carefully. Though it would require a visit to Grimmauld Place. The Black family home contains many of Bellatrix's childhood possessions. Excellent. Wednesday pocketed the marble. When do we leave? Hold on, Harry interjected. What's the plan once we find her? Bellatrix is dangerous even without Voldemort backing her. We capture her, of course, Wednesday replied, as if it were obvious. The Addams family has extensive experience containing dangerous individuals. Great-Aunt Lucretia keeps her 7 husbands perfectly preserved in the wine cellar. Silence fell over the office. I believe what Mr. Potter means, Dumbledore said delicately, is that we should develop a coordinated strategy rather than rushing into confrontation. Wednesday considered this. Acceptable. Though I should note that Bellatrix won't wait patiently while we strategize. She's escalating rapidly, showing classic signs of postmaster derangement. The next attack will be soon. All the more reason to act quickly but cautiously, Lupin said. I suggest a small team. Harry, yourself, and perhaps 1 or 2 Order members. I'll go, Snape said, surprising everyone. I have unique insights into Bellatrix's psychology. Wednesday nodded. The reformed Death Eater perspective could prove useful. I was never, Snape began heatedly, then stopped himself with visible effort. Very well. When do we depart for Grimmauld Place? First thing tomorrow, Dumbledore decided. For tonight, I believe Miss Adams should settle into her quarters and rest after her journey. Wednesday stood. I don't require rest, but I would like to review my notes on Bellatrix's psychological profile. Potter, walk with me to the dungeons. I have questions about your prior encounters with her. It wasn't a request so much as a command. Harry nodded, saying quick goodbyes to Ron and Hermione before following Wednesday from the office. They walked in silence for several minutes, Wednesday's face unreadable as ever. Finally, as they descended into the cooler air of the dungeons, she spoke. You're concerned about your relatives. Harry blinked in surprise. How did you? Your aura has guilt patterns. Classic survivor's response when non-essential connections are threatened. Wednesday glanced at him. They treated you poorly, yet you feel responsible for their safety. They're still family, Harry said uncomfortably. And Bellatrix only targeted them because of me. Misplaced guilt. Lestrange makes her own choices. Wednesday stopped outside a heavy wooden door embedded in the dungeon wall. But if it helps, we'll prioritize preventing further attacks on your blood connections. Thanks, Harry said, genuinely touched by her consideration, odd as her phrasing might be. So, what did you really want to ask me about Bellatrix? Wednesday's lips curved in the ghost of a smile. Perceptive. I wanted to confirm something without the headmaster's interference. Your scar, how has it been since the ritual? Harry touched his forehead reflexively. Fine. No pain, no visions. Nothing. And dreams? Any unusual ones? Harry frowned. No, why? The soul extraction ritual occasionally leaves echoes. Impressions. Wednesday studied his face intently. I needed to verify we achieved complete separation. And did we? Yes. She turned to open her door. One less complication. The room beyond was exactly what Harry would have expected for Wednesday Addams, stone walls glistening with moisture, heavy velvet curtains blocking any hint of the lake windows, and furniture that looked like it belonged in a medieval torture chamber rather than a student's quarters. Lurch had already arranged her belongings, including what appeared to be a small cauldron bubbling with something phosphorescent in the corner. Your accommodations are acceptable? Harry asked, struggling to keep a straight face. Adequate, Wednesday replied. Though disappointingly free of resident vermin. Grandmother would call it sterile. Harry leaned against the doorframe, watching as she moved around the room, checking various bizarre instruments and containers. Despite the strangeness of it all, he felt oddly comfortable in her presence. Wednesday's brutal honesty was refreshing after years of people walking on eggshells around him. I'm glad you came back, he said suddenly. Wednesday paused, turning to look at him. The problem is interesting. Bellatrix represents a particular type of magical psychosis rarely documented outside restricted texts. Right. For research purposes. Of course. Harry couldn't help but smile. Wednesday tilted her head. You're amused. Just glad some things don't change. He pushed off from the doorframe. I should let you get to your notes. We're leaving for Grimmauld Place at 7 tomorrow. I'll be ready. She returned to arranging what looked suspiciously like preserved animal parts on a small shelf. Sleep well, Potter. Dreams reveal much about the psyche. It was such a Wednesday thing to say that Harry found himself smiling all the way back to Gryffindor Tower. Grimmauld Place looked much as Harry remembered it, gloomy, forbidding, and filled with dark magical objects that seemed to watch visitors with malevolent intent. Their small group, Harry, Wednesday, Snape, and Lupin, moved carefully through the dusty hallways toward the upper floors. Bellatrix would have shared a room with Narcissa and Andromeda when they visited as children, Lupin explained as they climbed the stairs. According to Sirius, the third-floor guest room was designated for the Black Sisters. Wednesday ran her fingers along the wallpaper as they walked, leaving trails in the dust. This house has seen interesting deaths, she observed. The walls remember. Snape shot her a suspicious look. How could you possibly know that? The same way I know you've used blood magic in this very hallway, Wednesday replied calmly. Residual magical signatures linger for decades in proper wizarding homes. Snape's face tightened, but he said nothing. They reached the third floor, where Lupin led them to a door carved with serpentine designs. This should be it. The room beyond was clearly a young girl's bedroom, though with the distinctly twisted aesthetic of the Black family. The four-poster bed was draped in faded green silk, while the wallpaper featured delicate patterns that, on closer inspection, depicted tiny magical creatures in various states of distress. A collection of disturbingly realistic dolls watched from glass-fronted cabinets with eyes that seemed to follow their movements. Charming, Lupin muttered. Wednesday, however, looked almost approving as she surveyed the room. She had promising taste as a child. The corruption came later. She moved methodically around the space, occasionally touching objects before moving on. Finally, she stopped before a small jewelry box on the dressing table. This, she said, picking it up. Her first wand core is preserved inside. Unicorn hair, if I'm not mistaken. How do you know that? Harry asked. Family tradition. The Blacks would have preserved each child's first magical core component as a protective talisman. Wednesday opened the box, revealing a single silvery strand. This will work perfectly with my tracker. She withdrew the black marble from her pocket and carefully pressed the unicorn hair against it. The marble seemed to absorb the hair, glowing briefly with an inner red light before returning to black. Activation complete, Wednesday announced. The tracker will lead us to Lestrange now. Just like that? Snape asked skeptically. Wednesday fixed him with her unblinking stare. Magic is intent and will, Professor. Your European traditions add unnecessary complications. She placed the marble on her palm, where it began to rotate slowly before settling in a specific direction. Northwest. Approximately 30 miles from here. That's the direction of Lestrange Manor, Snape said, looking surprised despite himself. One of the family's minor properties used primarily for certain Dark Lord activities. Then that's where we go, Harry said firmly. Lupin held up a hand. Not so fast. We need to report back to Dumbledore and form a proper plan. Bellatrix likely has the place warded and possibly has other Death Eaters with her. The longer we wait, the more prepared she becomes, Wednesday countered. The optimal approach is immediate action with minimal personnel. I agree with Miss Adams, Snape said, surprising everyone. Bellatrix expects a large-scale order response. A small team might penetrate her defenses more effectively. Lupin looked torn. It's too dangerous. I survived Voldemort 7 times, Harry interrupted. I think I can handle Bellatrix. And I've been training for confrontations with deranged dark wizards since childhood, Wednesday added. Family tradition. Lupin sighed, clearly recognizing a losing battle. Fine. But we stick together, follow a careful plan, and bring her in alive for questioning. Of course, Wednesday agreed smoothly, though something in her tone made Harry glance sharply at her. Her expression revealed nothing, but he couldn't shake the feeling she was already formulating her own approach. They left Grimmauld Place, operating to a wooded area that Snape identified as approximately a mile from Lestrange Manor. Wednesday's tracker led them through the trees, the marble spinning faster as they approached their target. The manor should be just beyond this ridge, Snape whispered as they crouched in the underbrush. It's likely under Fidelius' charm. Irrelevant, Wednesday replied. The tracker follows the person, not the location. She closed her eyes, holding the marble tightly. She's inside. Alone, but expecting company. How could she know we're coming? Lupin asked worriedly. She doesn't know it's us specifically, Wednesday clarified. But she's set traps. I can feel the intent in her protective magic. What kind of traps? Harry asked. The lethal kind. Wednesday opened her eyes. Standard wards, but modified with black family blood curses. Creative. She's more intelligent than her psychosis suggests. Snape nodded grimly. Bellatrix was always brilliant, even by black family standards. Her madness makes her more dangerous, not less. So how do we get past the wards? Lupin asked. Wednesday reached into a small pouch at her waist and withdrew what appeared to be a mummified frog. Adam's family ward dissolver. Great-grandmother's recipe. Snape looked skeptical. A dead amphibian will bypass black family blood wards. Not dead, Wednesday corrected. Suspended. And infused with counteracting elements. She crushed the frog between her palms, releasing a fine dust that she blew toward the manor. Ward matrix destabilized. We have approximately 7 minutes before they reconstitute. Harry, Lupin, and Snape exchanged impressed glances. Without another word, they moved toward the manor, wands drawn. The building that came into view was smaller than Harry had expected, more hunting lodge than manor, really. Its stone walls were covered in dark ivy, and the few visible windows glowed with sickly yellow light. Back in trance, Snape whispered, pointing to a narrow door partially hidden by overgrown shrubbery. They approached cautiously, Wednesday leading the way with her tracker. At the door, she paused, running her fingers along the frame. Secondary trap, she announced. Cutting curse embedded in the wood. Triggers when the handle turns. Can you disarm it? Lupin asked. Wednesday nodded, withdrawing her wand and tracing a complex pattern in the air. The door frame glowed briefly red, then faded back to normal. Redirected, she explained. The curse will now target the first mouse to cross the threshold. Oddly specific, Harry muttered. I like mice, Wednesday replied simply, before pushing the door open. They entered what appeared to be a kitchen, long abandoned to dust and cobwebs. Snape led them through to a narrow hallway, following Wednesday's directions as the tracker pulled them deeper into the house. Second floor, she whispered. The master bedroom. They climbed a creaking staircase, wands raised against potential attacks. The house remained eerily silent except for their own carefully placed footsteps. Harry's pendant, the sole fragment detector Wednesday had given him, remained cool against his chest, showing no reaction. At the top of the stairs, Wednesday suddenly stopped, holding up a hand to halt the others. Something's wrong, she whispered. The tracker's behaving strangely. The black marble was now spinning rapidly in her palm, pointing in all directions at once. A countermeasure? Snape suggested. Wednesday frowned. Possible. Or, a high, cackling laugh echoed through the house, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Harry felt a chill run down his spine, he would recognize that laugh anywhere. Visitors. Bellatrix's voice sang out. How delightful. The boy who wouldn't die and my little protégé. I've been waiting for you. Wednesday's eyes narrowed. She's using a projection charm. She's not physically here. Very good, little Adams. Bellatrix's voice approved. So clever, so deliciously dark. We could have such fun together, you and I. Where are you? Harry demanded, his wand sweeping the corridor. Somewhere safe, baby Potter. Somewhere I can watch my surprise unfold. The laughter came again, setting Harry's teeth on edge. Did you like my little gift to your family? I thought it would get your attention. Harry gritted his teeth. If you touch them again, oh, the muggles were just an appetizer, darling. The main course is much more interesting. There was a pause, then, 3, 2, 1. A loud crack echoed through the house, followed by a strange hissing sound. Green smoke began pouring from the walls, filling the corridor with alarming speed. Gas! Lupin shouted. Everyone out. They turned to rush back down the stairs, but the green smoke was already flowing up from below, cutting off their escape. Bubblehead charms. Snape ordered, casting his own with a quick flick. Harry and Lupin followed suit, but Wednesday merely withdrew a small vial from her pocket and drank its contents in one swift motion. Poison immunity, she explained, her voice slightly distorted to Harry's protected ears. Family recipe. The smoke grew thicker, limiting visibility to just a few feet. Harry felt Lupin grab his arm, trying to keep their group together as they navigated blindly toward what they hoped was an exit. A sudden crash from nearby made them all freeze. Something was moving in the smoke, something large. Bellatrix mentioned a surprise, Snape hissed. Be ready. A massive shape lunged from the green haze. Harry caught a glimpse of gleaming scales and yellow eyes before he was diving out of the way, a spell already on his lips. Stupefy. The red light hit the creature but seemed to dissipate harmlessly across its hide. As the smoke shifted, Harry got a clearer view. It was a giant snake, easily twice the size Nagini had been, with spines protruding along its back. Experimental breed, Wednesday observed with clinical detachment. Chimeric properties. Resistant to standard magic. The snake lunged again, this time targeting Lupin, who barely managed to conjure a shield in time. The impact still sent him crashing into the wall with a grunt of pain. Ideas? Harry shouted, casting another ineffective stunning spell. The eyes, Snape called. Target the eyes. Harry aimed carefully. Conjunctivitis. The spell hit its mark, and the snake reared back, hissing in pain and rage. Its massive body thrashed in the confined space, smashing through a nearby wall. The structural integrity of the building is compromised, Wednesday noted calmly, as plaster and wood rained down around them. You think? Harry retorted, grabbing her arm and pulling her away from a falling beam. The snake recovered quickly, its one good eye fixing on Harry with malevolent intent. It struck again, faster than seemed possible for something so large. Harry felt its fangs graze his leg as he twisted away, tearing his robes. Wednesday stepped forward, her wand moving in an intricate pattern Harry had never seen before. Osseum fragilitas, she intoned. The snake froze mid-strike, its body convulsing as a series of sickening cracks filled the air. It collapsed to the floor, still alive but unable to move as its bones apparently shattered within its body. Bone-shattering curse, Wednesday explained, seeing Harry's shocked expression. Modified for reptilian anatomy. Remind me never to get on your bad side, Harry muttered. Bellatrix's laughter filled the air again. Oh, well done, little Adams. Such beautiful cruelty. We really must work together someday. Where is she? Lupin demanded, casting detection spells that revealed nothing. She's using the Resonus charm, Snape realized. Her voice is being channeled through a prepared object somewhere in the house. Wednesday closed her eyes, seeming to concentrate. The master bedroom. Something there is connected to her. They moved carefully toward the end of the corridor, where an ornate door stood partially open. The green smoke was thinning now, either dissipating naturally or being vented somehow. Harry pushed the door open fully, revealing a luxurious bedroom dominated by a massive four-poster bed. On the nightstand sat a small silver hand mirror, glowing with an unnatural light. There, Snape pointed. The communication device. As they approached, Bellatrix's face appeared in the mirror, grinning maniacally. So sorry I couldn't attend our little party in person. Prior engagement, you understand. Where are you, Bellatrix? Harry demanded. Somewhere you'll never find me, Potter. Her dark eyes shifted to Wednesday. Unless my lovely little protégé decides to join me instead. We could do such wonderful things together, Wednesday Adams. Your family magic combined with my creativity. I already have a psychotic mentor, Wednesday replied flatly. My grandmother. Her bone tea is exceptional. Bellatrix's grin widened. Playing hard to get? I like that. Her expression suddenly hardened as she looked at Snape. And Severus. Still playing the faithful spy. How disappointed our Lord would be. Your Lord is dead, Snape replied coldly. Permanently this time. Is he? Bellatrix's eyes gleamed with something that made Harry's blood run cold. Are you certain? Wednesday stepped forward. Voldemort's soul fragments are destroyed. I personally extracted the last one from Potter's scar. Your master is beyond resurrection. For a moment, doubt flickered across Bellatrix's face. Then her manic smile returned. We shall see. In the meantime, enjoy my parting gift. I call it Fiendfire in a Bottle. Family recipe. The mirror suddenly cracked down the middle, and a small object dropped from its frame onto the floor, a tiny glass vial filled with what looked like writhing flames. Get out! Snape roared, already turning toward the door. Now! The vial shattered, releasing a torrent of cursed fire that immediately took the form of serpents and dragons. The heat was instantaneous and overwhelming, the flames spreading with unnatural speed. Run! Lupin shouted, pushing Harry toward the door. They sprinted back down the corridor, the fiendfire roaring behind them. The staircase was already engulfed, cutting off their escape route. Window. Harry pointed to a large stained glass window at the end of the hall. Too high, Lupin countered. We'd never survive the fall. Wednesday calmly withdrew another vial from her seemingly endless supply. Levitation potion. Temporary but effective. Without waiting for discussion, she smashed the vial on the floor at their feet. A silvery mist enveloped them, creating a strange weightless sensation. Jump, she instructed, already moving toward the window. Harry cast a blasting curse at the window, shattering the colored glass. The fiendfire was barely 20 feet behind them now, consuming everything in its path with terrifying efficiency. One by one, they leapt through the broken window. Instead of plummeting to the ground, they floated down like leaves, the potion slowing their descent to a gentle drift. They landed on the overgrown lawn just as the entire upper floor of the manor erupted in cursed flames. Well, Lupin said shakily, watching as the building was rapidly consumed. That could have gone better. Wednesday was already consulting her tracker again, but the marble remained motionless in her palm. The connection is severed. She must have applied a countercharm when she realized we'd found her communication device. Harry kicked a stone in frustration. So we're back to square one. Not entirely, Wednesday replied. We've confirmed she's working alone, with resources, and has access to exotic magical creatures and rare poisons. That narrows the possible locations. How do you figure? Lupin asked. The chimeric snake requires specialized care. The fiendfire potion is volatile and must be freshly brewed near where it's used. Wednesday pocketed the tracker. She's at a location with advanced potion brewing facilities and magical creature containment. Snape's eyes widened slightly. There are only a handful of such places in Britain. Precisely. Wednesday turned toward the burning manor. We should return to Hogwarts and refine the search parameters. As they walked away from the blazing building, Harry noticed Wednesday studying him with her penetrating gaze. What? He asked. You're different from our last adventure, she observed. More decisive. Less conflicted. Having a piece of Voldemort's soul removed will do that, Harry replied dryly. Yes. Something like approval flickered in her dark eyes. You've embraced your own darkness rather than fighting the foreign one. Much healthier. Coming from Wednesday, Harry decided to take that as a compliment. Back at Hogwarts, Dumbledore called an emergency meeting of the Order to discuss their findings. The Room of Requirement transformed itself into a perfect war room, with maps of Britain covering the walls and a large table at the center. Based on what you've described, Dumbledore said, examining Snape's list of possible locations, I believe we can narrow Bellatrix's hideout to one of 3 places. He pointed to spots on the map. Rookwood's old research facility in Cornwall, the abandoned Ministry Creature Containment Center in the Highlands, or the Lestrange Summer Estate in Wales. Wednesday finished, studying the map intently. The third is most probable. Family properties contain generational magic that would amplify her abilities. Agreed, Snape said. Rodolphus inherited the Welsh estate from his grandmother, who was renowned for experimental breeding of magical creatures. Then that's where we'll focus our search, Dumbledore decided. I'll dispatch order teams to conduct long-range surveillance of all 3 locations, but we'll concentrate our resources on the Welsh property. Wednesday shook her head. Too slow. Too obvious. Bellatrix expects an order response with multiple wizards and standard protocols. She turned to Harry. We need a different approach. Just you and me. Absolutely not, McGonagall interjected sharply. Mr. Potter has already faced enough danger without charging off alone with. She stopped abruptly, seeming to reconsider her words. With me? Wednesday finished, unperturbed. A macabre girl with questionable magic and even more questionable family traditions. McGonagall had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. I merely meant without adequate backup, Miss Adams. Potter and I defeated Voldemort with minimal assistance, Wednesday pointed out. Bellatrix, while dangerous, is merely a fragment of that challenge. She has a point, Harry said, earning a disapproving look from McGonagall. Wednesday and I work well together. We can move faster and less conspicuously than a full order team. And what exactly would this approach entail? Dumbledore asked Wednesday directly. We use Bellatrix's obsession against her, Wednesday explained. I present myself as interested in her offer, draw her out, then we capture her. You want to use yourself as bait? Lupin asked, alarmed. No, Wednesday corrected. I want to use myself as a lure. There's a distinction. And how would you contact her? Snape asked. Your tracker is no longer functional. Wednesday reached into her pocket and withdrew what looked like a small bone whistle. This will reach her. It's attuned to the pain signature I left on her during our first encounter. That's disturbingly ingenious, Dumbledore admitted. But I cannot in good conscience approve a plan that places both of you in such direct danger. With respect, Headmaster, Harry said firmly, I don't need approval. I'm of age, and Bellatrix threatened my family. I'm going after her with or without permission. A tense silence fell over the room. Harry met Dumbledore's gaze steadily, refusing to back down. After everything they'd been through, the prophecy, the Horcruxes, Voldemort's defeat, he wasn't about to be sidelined now. Very well, Dumbledore finally sighed. But with conditions. You will take a portkey for emergency extraction. You will maintain contact through Patronus messengers. And you will have order members stationed nearby as backup. Acceptable, Wednesday agreed before Harry could respond. We leave at midnight. The witching hour provides optimal conditions for the summoning. I'd prefer you wait until we've confirmed her location, Dumbledore countered. Wednesday shook her head. Unnecessary. The whistle will draw her to us, wherever we are. We simply need an appropriately dramatic setting to make the invitation appealing to her psychological profile. And where would that be? McGonagall asked warily. Wednesday's lips curved in a small, rare smile. Where else? The Department of Mysteries. The place where she killed Potter's godfather. Harry felt a jolt at the mention of Sirius. You want to meet her there? It's psychologically perfect, Wednesday explained. A location of power for her, a location of pain for you. The emotional resonance will be irresistible to someone of her particular madness. That's Ministry property, McGonagall protested. Heavily secured, I can arrange access, Dumbledore interrupted, surprising everyone. Minister Scrimgeour owes me several favors, and capturing Bellatrix Lestrange would be a significant political victory for him. Harry looked at Wednesday with new appreciation. Her plan was calculating, risky, and brilliantly tailored to Bellatrix's twisted psychology. It was exactly the kind of strategy Voldemort would never have anticipated, which was why he'd ultimately failed against them. "It's settled, then," Harry said. "The Department of Mysteries. Midnight." Wednesday nodded once, then turned to leave the room. "I need to prepare the summoning ritual. Potter, join me in an hour to review the details." As she departed, Ron leaned over to Harry. "Mental, that one. Brilliant, but completely mental." Harry couldn't disagree. But he also couldn't deny that despite the danger ahead, he felt a strange thrill at the prospect of working with Wednesday again. They had an oddly effective dynamic, her cold calculation balancing his instinctive approach. "Be careful, Harry," Hermione said quietly. "Bellatrix is unhinged, especially now that she's lost Voldemort." "I know," Harry assured her. "But so is Wednesday, in her own way. Fighting fire with fire. Or fighting madness with madness," Ron muttered. Harry thought that might be exactly the point. The Department of Mysteries looked different at night. Without the chaos of battle or the desperate search for Sirius, Harry could appreciate the strange beauty of the place, the smooth black stone walls, the dancing light of the enchanted torches, the sense of ancient magic pulsing beneath the surface. He and Wednesday stood in the circular entrance chamber, surrounded by identical doors. Order members were stationed throughout the ministry, ready to respond if needed, but the department itself was empty save for them. "The Death Chamber," Wednesday said, pointing to a door that looked indistinguishable from the others to Harry. "That's where we'll conduct the summoning." "How can you tell which door is which?" Harry asked as they approached it. "Death has a particular resonance," Wednesday replied. "My family is attuned to it." The room beyond was exactly as Harry remembered, the stone amphitheater descending in tiers toward the dais at the center, where the ancient archway stood with its tattered veil fluttering in a non-existent breeze. The sight of it made his chest tighten painfully. Somewhere beyond that veil was Sirius, lost forever. Wednesday seemed to sense his thoughts. "The veil isn't a prison, you know," she said as they descended the stone steps. "It's a doorway. Those who pass through continue their journey." "To where?" Harry asked quietly. "Everywhere. Nowhere. The next adventure." Wednesday shrugged. "My family has extensive records of near crossings. Cousin Morticia spent 3 delightful minutes beyond the veil during a childhood game of hide-and-seek. She said it was disappointingly pleasant." Harry wasn't sure if that made him feel better or worse, but he appreciated the attempt at comfort, awkward as it was. They reached the dais, where Wednesday began unpacking items from her seemingly bottomless bag: candles, small bones, vials of suspicious liquids, and the bone whistle she'd shown the order. She arranged them in a precise pattern around the base of the archway. "The summoning has 3 components," she explained as she worked. "First, the pain connection established during our previous encounter. Second, the promise of shared knowledge. I'll appear to offer family secrets as enticement. Third, the location's emotional significance." "What do you need me to do?" Harry asked. "Stand there," Wednesday pointed to a spot slightly behind her. "Your presence is both bait and catalyst. She hates you enough to risk exposure just for a chance to kill you." "Comforting," Harry muttered. "It should be," Wednesday replied seriously. "Being worth killing is a form of respect." Only Wednesday could make that sound like a compliment. Harry took his position, wand ready as she completed her preparations. When everything was in place, Wednesday lit the black candles with a wave of her hand. They flared with unusual blue-tinged flames, casting eerie shadows across the chamber. "Now we summon her," Wednesday said, picking up the bone whistle. "When she arrives, let me speak first. She needs to believe I'm genuinely interested in her offer. And if she attacks immediately, duck," Wednesday suggested helpfully before raising the whistle to her lips. The sound it produced wasn't what Harry expected, not a shrill whistle but a low, haunting moan that seemed to emanate from the stone walls themselves rather than the instrument. The temperature in the chamber plummeted, and the veil in the archway began to move more violently, as if caught in a strong wind. Wednesday lowered the whistle. Now we wait. They didn't have to wait long. Barely 5 minutes later, the blue flames of the candles suddenly flared higher, then turned blood-red. A swirling darkness appeared at the top of the amphitheater steps, coalescing into a familiar figure. Bellatrix Lestrange stood before them, looking wild and dangerous in flowing black robes. Her hair was even more unkempt than usual, and her eyes held a feverish gleam as they darted between Wednesday and Harry. "Such a formal invitation," she purred, descending the steps with her wand held casually at her side. "I'm flattered, little Adams. And you brought Potter as a gift? How thoughtful." Wednesday stepped forward, her expression impassive as ever. "Not a gift. A demonstration of good faith. You wish to discuss a partnership. I'm curious." Bellatrix's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Are you now? And what changed your mind after our last encounter?" "Your resilience impressed me," Wednesday replied smoothly. "The trap at the manor was elegantly conceived. Few wizards understand the artistic application of fiendfire." A pleased smile spread across Bellatrix's face. "It was rather good, wasn't it? A family specialty." "Speaking of family." Her gaze slid to Harry. "What does Potter think of your sudden interest in my mentorship?" "Potter's opinion is irrelevant," Wednesday said dismissively. "He served his purpose in defeating Voldemort. The Horcruxes offended my family's sensibilities. With that balance restored, my obligations to him are complete." Harry tried not to react, remembering his role in this charade. He let his face show betrayal and confusion, which wasn't entirely difficult under the circumstances. Bellatrix looked delighted. "Oh, poor baby Potter. Abandoned by his little Gothic friend." She twirled her wand playfully. "Shall I kill him for you as a show of good faith?" "Not yet," Wednesday replied, as if discussing the weather. "He may still have uses." "Such as?" Bellatrix asked, taking another step closer. Wednesday reached into her pocket and withdrew a small vial of red liquid. "My family has been experimenting with sacrificial magic involving those who've survived killing curses. Potter's blood has unique properties." Bellatrix's eyes lit up with manic interest. "For what purpose?" "Resurrection rituals," Wednesday said quietly. "More effective than the one your master used." Harry felt a chill that had nothing to do with the chamber's temperature. Wednesday was playing a dangerous game, dangling the possibility of Voldemort's return before his most devoted follower. "You're lying," Bellatrix hissed, but her voice trembled with desperate hope. "It's impossible. We tried everything, your master lacked certain, familial advantages," Wednesday replied. "The Adams lineage includes connections to the Peverils, who mastered death magic long before Hogwarts was founded." "The Peverils?" Bellatrix breathed. "The creators of the Hallows?" "Among other achievements." Wednesday held up the vial. "This is merely one component. I can show you the full ritual, if we have an understanding." Bellatrix took another step closer, her eyes fixed on the vial with naked hunger. "What sort of understanding?" "I provide the knowledge. You provide the influence. Together we reshape magical society according to proper traditions." Wednesday's voice remained flat, but she injected just enough conviction to make it believable. "The wizarding world has become sanitized. Domesticated. It needs to remember the old ways." It was a masterful performance. Harry could almost believe Wednesday meant it, perhaps because parts of it contained grains of truth. The Addams family did seem to value magical traditions that modern society had abandoned. Bellatrix was practically vibrating with excitement. "Yes. Exactly. That's what he always wanted, a return to magical purity, to power without restraint." She took another step forward, now just feet away from Wednesday. "Show me. Show me the ritual." Wednesday held out the vial. Take it. Examine it. The first step in our partnership. As Bellatrix reached for the vial, Harry tensed, ready to act. This was the moment, Bellatrix at her most vulnerable, distracted by obsession. What happened next occurred with disorienting speed. Bellatrix's fingers closed around the vial, but instead of examining it, she immediately smashed it against the stone floor. Red liquid splattered across the dais, some of it splashing onto the base of the archway. Did you think me a fool? Bellatrix shrieked, her wand suddenly aimed at Wednesday's heart. That's not blood, it's a binding agent. You're trying to trap me. Wednesday didn't flinch. Yes. Obviously. The blunt admission seemed to catch Bellatrix off guard. You admit it? Attempting to deceive you would be pointless now. Wednesday remained perfectly still despite the wand aimed at her. What wasn't a deception was my assessment of your abilities. You have potential, Bellatrix. Warped, but impressive. Bellatrix's wand hand trembled slightly. Don't try to flatter me, girl. I'll kill you where you stand. You could try, Wednesday agreed mildly. But you'd fail, just as your master failed against Potter. Death comes for everyone eventually. Some merely arrange more interesting welcomes than others. Harry watched the exchange with growing tension, his own wand ready. The plan had failed, but Wednesday seemed unconcerned, almost as if she'd expected this outcome. Bellatrix's face contorted with rage. How dare you compare me to, her words cut off abruptly as she glanced down at her feet. The spilled liquid from the vial was moving, flowing in unnatural patterns across the stone floor, forming symbols around her. What is this? She demanded, trying to step back only to find her feet seemingly glued in place. Binding ritual, Wednesday explained calmly. Not what you thought, but a binding nonetheless. The vial contained distilled graveyard soil from where you dueled Potter, mixed with your magical signature from our first encounter. The chamber amplifies its effects. Bellatrix snarled and slashed her wand through the air. Avada Kedavra. The green light erupted from her wand, heading straight for Wednesday, who made no move to dodge. Instead, the killing curse seemed to hit an invisible barrier inches from her chest, dissipating into harmless sparks. Adam's family protection, Wednesday reminded her, just as she had explained to Harry during the graveyard battle. Death doesn't take us until we're ready. Bellatrix screamed in frustration, casting spell after spell, each one dissolving before reaching its target. Meanwhile, the red liquid continued to spread, the symbols glowing brighter. Now, Potter, Wednesday said calmly. Harry stepped forward, his wand aimed at Bellatrix. Expelliarmus. Her wand flew from her grasp, arcing through the air into Harry's waiting hand. Bellatrix howled with rage, struggling against her invisible bonds. You'll pay for this, she shrieked. Both of you. When the Dark Lord returns, he won't, Harry said firmly. It's over, Bellatrix. Your master is gone for good. You're lying. Wednesday said, I lied, Wednesday confirmed, adjusting one of the candles slightly. An obvious tactical deception. The red symbols had now formed a complete circle around Bellatrix, pulsing with magical energy. She continued to struggle, but her movements became increasingly sluggish, as if she were moving through thick syrup. What is this magic? She gasped, her voice losing its manic edge, replaced with something close to fear. Soul containment, Wednesday explained, watching dispassionately as Bellatrix slowly sank to her knees. Not unlike what happened to your master when his Horcruxes were destroyed. The difference is you'll remain alive. Just, subdued. Bellatrix's eyes widened in horror. You're taking my magic. Not taking. Binding. Wednesday approached the edge of the circle, careful not to cross the symbols. You'll retain your magical core, but it will be permanently restricted. No more unforgivables. No more dark rituals. Just enough power for basic spells under controlled conditions. No. Bellatrix wailed, a sound of pure despair. Kill me instead. Please. Death would be too merciful, Wednesday replied coldly. You'll live a long life remembering what you once were, what you can never be again. A fitting punishment for one who valued power above all else. Harry watched as Bellatrix collapsed fully onto the stone floor, her body racked with sobs. It should have felt satisfying to see his godfather's killer brought so low, but instead he felt a complicated mix of justice and pity. Is it permanent? He asked quietly. Wednesday nodded. The ritual tethers her magic to the veil. Try to use dark magic, and it feeds the energy to the dead instead. Poetic, I thought. Footsteps echoed from above as Order members rushed into the chamber, wands drawn. Dumbledore led the group, taking in the scene with a grave expression. It appears you were successful, he observed, approaching the dais carefully. Yes, Wednesday confirmed. She's neutralized. The binding will hold indefinitely. Aurors moved forward to secure Bellatrix, who offered no resistance, her eyes vacant and her body limp. As they carried her away, Dumbledore turned to Wednesday with a troubled expression. Soul binding is considered borderline dark magic by Ministry standards, he noted quietly. By European standards, Wednesday corrected. My family considers it a more humane alternative to execution. She lives, but without the capacity to harm others with dark magic. Dumbledore studied her for a long moment. A creative solution, if somewhat, ethically complex. Ethics are relative, Wednesday replied with a shrug. Results are absolute. Harry stepped forward. It's done, Professor. Bellatrix is captured, her power neutralized. That's what matters. After a moment, Dumbledore nodded. Indeed it is, Harry. The last of Voldemort's inner circle has fallen. He looked around the death chamber with a weary sigh. Let us leave this place. I find its particular energies rather draining. As they climbed the stone steps out of the amphitheater, Harry glanced back at the veil, still fluttering gently in its non-existent breeze. For a moment, he thought he heard distant whispers, perhaps Sirius, perhaps just the veil itself, but they sounded almost approving. The next morning found Harry, Ron, and Hermione having breakfast in the Great Hall when the mail arrived, bringing with it stacks of daily prophets emblazoned with the headline, Lestrange captured. Potter and American ally trapped Dark Witch in Department of Mysteries. At least they mentioned you this time, Harry told Wednesday, who had joined them at the Gryffindor table, much to the surprise of everyone. She glanced at the paper with disinterest. Media coverage is irrelevant. Says the girl whose picture is on the front page, Ron pointed out, tapping the image where a stoic Wednesday stood beside Harry in the Ministry atrium. Mother will frame it, Wednesday admitted. She collects family appearances in macabre circumstances. This qualifies. Hermione set down her copy of the paper. What I find most interesting is their description of the mysterious ritual used to subdue Bellatrix. The Ministry's being surprisingly tight-lipped about it. Dumbledore's influence, Harry explained. He convinced Scrimgeour that publicizing the details might encourage copycat attempts. Pointless concern, Wednesday said, dissecting her breakfast with surgical precision. The ritual requires specific familial magic. Non-Adamses attempting it would achieve disappointingly fatal results. Ron choked on his pumpkin juice. You mean it would kill them? Messily, Wednesday confirmed, causing several nearby students to slide further away on the bench. Dumbledore approached their table, smiling warmly. Miss Adams, Mr. Potter. May I offer my personal congratulations on your success last night? The wizarding world owes you a great debt. Debts are useful, Wednesday noted pragmatically. My family collects them systematically. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. Indeed. Speaking of your family, I've received an unusual letter from your mother this morning. She extends an invitation for Harry to visit your estate during the summer holidays. Harry nearly dropped his fork. She what? Mother believes in encouraging potentially beneficial social connections, Wednesday explained, as if this were perfectly normal. Your survival of multiple death experiences qualifies you as interesting company. Thank you. Harry wasn't sure how to respond to being classified as interesting company based on his near-death experiences. It's not a compliment, Wednesday clarified. Merely an observation. The invitation stands regardless. Ron leaned over. Mate, if you go, write your will first. Just saying. Hermione elbowed him sharply. Don't be rude. When will you be returning home? Dumbledore asked Wednesday. Tomorrow morning. My purpose here is complete. She glanced at Harry. Again. Harry felt an unexpected pang at the news. Despite her macabre tendencies and unsettling perspectives, he'd grown to appreciate Wednesday's company. Her straightforward approach to problems and her refusal to treat him with either reverence or pity made for a refreshing change. Will you be back? He found himself asking. Wednesday considered the question seriously. Perhaps. Your world has interesting magical anomalies worth studying. And Cousin had expressed interest in your Professor Hagrid's breeding programs. That sounds ominous, Hermione muttered. It should, Wednesday agreed. Cousinet's last hybridization experiment required 3 separate ministry containment teams and a specialized obliviation squad. Dumbledore cleared his throat. Well, should you decide to return, Hogwarts will welcome you. Your unique perspective has proven invaluable on 2 separate occasions now. After Dumbledore departed, Ron shook his head in disbelief. Never thought I'd see the day when Dumbledore himself would encourage Wednesday Addams to come back. The headmaster recognizes useful allies, Hermione pointed out. And Wednesday is certainly that, even if her methods are unconventional. Unconventional, Ron repeated incredulously. She bound Bellatrix's soul to the veil between life and death. That's a bit beyond unconventional. Harry watched as Wednesday calmly continued eating, seemingly unbothered by their discussion of her. That was another thing he appreciated about her. She never seemed concerned with others' opinions, secure in her own peculiar worldview. Will you accept, he asked suddenly. The invitation to visit your family, I mean. Wednesday looked up, her dark eyes meeting his directly. That depends. Do you find the prospect of our ancestral home, with its extensive collection of torture devices, man-eating plants, and occasionally homicidal relatives, appealing or terrifying? Both, Harry admitted honestly. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. Good answer. The appropriate response to the Addams estate is always both. The next morning dawned gray and misty, perfectly matching Wednesday's aesthetic as she prepared to depart. The digging pod had been retrieved from the forbidden forest, minus a few decorative spikes that the acromantulas had apparently found tasty, and sat waiting on the front lawn. Harry, Ron, and Hermione stood with Dumbledore and several professors to see her off. Lurch was already loading her trunks, each movement accompanied by his characteristic groans. Well, Hermione said awkwardly, it was certainly educational having you at Hogwarts, Wednesday. Your library's restricted section is inadequate, Wednesday replied, which Harry suspected was her version of small talk. I've left a list of recommended additions with Professor Snape. Snape, standing nearby, nodded stiffly. Most of which are banned in 17 countries, Miss Addams. Hence their educational value, she countered smoothly. Ron hesitantly extended his hand. Thanks for, helping with the whole Voldemort thing. And Bellatrix. And not sacrificing Harry in any rituals. The opportunity may arise in the future, Wednesday replied, shaking his hand briefly. Family invitations often include ceremonial components. Ron paled slightly and shot Harry a worried look. Dumbledore stepped forward, offering Wednesday a small, wrapped package. A token of Hogwarts appreciation, Miss Addams. I believe you'll find it suits your particular interests. Wednesday unwrapped it carefully, revealing an ancient-looking book bound in what appeared to be black dragon hide. Her eyes widened fractionally, the closest thing to surprise Harry had ever seen on her face. Morgana's personal grimoire, she said, running her fingers over the cover. Long thought destroyed. Merely misplaced, Dumbledore corrected with a twinkle. In a section of the Hogwarts library that exists only occasionally, depending on the castle's mood. Acceptable gift, Wednesday declared, which from her seemed equivalent to effusive thanks. My grandmother will be pleased. Finally, she turned to Harry. The others discreetly moved away, giving them a moment of privacy. So, Harry said, suddenly unsure what to say. Back to America. Yes. Mother's cultivating a new strain of man-eating orchids that need supervision. And Pugsley has been detained by the magical authorities again for his experimental explosives. She said this with what might have been pride. Family responsibilities. Right. Harry shifted awkwardly. Listen, about the invitation. The offer remains open, Wednesday said. Summer solstice would be ideal. We perform the dance of the hungry spirits that night. Outsiders rarely witness it and survive. Is that supposed to be encouraging? It's supposed to be accurate. Wednesday tilted her head slightly. You've faced death multiple times, Potter. My family merely offers a different perspective on it. Less adversarial. More convivial. Harry couldn't help but smile. When you put it that way, how can I refuse? Most can't, Wednesday agreed. Though usually due to paralyzing terror rather than genuine interest. She extended her hand, and Harry took it. Her skin was cool and smooth against his. Until summer, then, he said. Until summer. She held his gaze for a moment longer than necessary. Try not to die boringly in the interim. It would be disappointing. With that uniquely Wednesday farewell, she turned and walked toward the digging pod. Lurch held the door open with a respectful bow as she entered. Harry watched as the strange vehicle rumbled to life, its spikes rotating and its bone wheels beginning to turn. It moved forward across the lawn, gaining speed, then suddenly angled downward and plunged into the earth, disappearing in a shower of dirt and grass. Within seconds, there was no sign it had ever been there except for a perfectly round hole and disturbed soil rapidly settling back into place. Mental, Ron said with finality. Absolutely mental. But brilliant, Hermione added. Harry nodded, still staring at the spot where the digging pod had vanished. Both, he agreed. Definitely both. As they turned to walk back to the castle, Harry's hand went to the pendant beneath his shirt, the soul fragment detector Wednesday had given him. It remained cool against his skin, a reminder of their strange partnership and the girl who had so briefly entered his life, solved problems deemed impossible, and then disappeared back into her macabre world. For now, at least. Summer wasn't so far away, after all. And Harry Potter, who had spent his entire life being told what was too dangerous, too dark, or too strange, found himself looking forward to seeing just what the Addams family considered a proper solstice celebration. After Voldemort and Bellatrix, how bad could it be? On second thought, he decided not to answer that question. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.